Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Well, I just want to welcome home the January 6th hostages. I think that's the first thing we have to say. Welcome home, everyone. Except for the 79
Welcome
of you
home,
that
guys.
the ones that stole stuff or vandalized apparently didn't get pardoned. So only the actual hostages who washed their hands and tucked in their shirts, but that's still pretty impressive, right? Like all of them are back.
I want to know, did Grandma make it out? Is Grandma okay? You remember Grandma?
There's a bunch of
I don't know
grandmas,
her
man.
actual name, but there was like
Apparently,
a grandma
they-
that was in J6.
Yeah, there's tons of grandmas. And then they were talking. I remember grandma saying that their credit cards were cut when they were going to the airport to leave. They're like, "Nope, you've been put on the no-fly list, Grandma." They did that to tons of old ladies, trying to scare them from ever participating in demonstrations ever again. Right? Pretty crazy stuff.
Well,
But
Coolest Grammys ever.
Assuming some of these stories are correct, and even I seem to have heard it, from people on social media that there are these cases, so it's a real thing. Then the only issue is, what if the conspiracy theory comes true that actually Trump has been in charge all along? How does that reflect on him? Just keeping the people inside reminds me of past foreign policy issues, if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, you guys remember the big thing where where Biden didn't have any military backing when he was president. The beginning of his inauguration, there weren't any symbols for the different military. And Trump during
and the trumpets and the firing shots, no, they were missing, if I remember.
Everything was weird and off. It was like he's not the commander in chief was kind of the motif. And then Trump, while he's doing his interview press release and signing executive orders, 200 or something, he has behind him all of these badges, all of these military insignias from these, which are blurry. So you can't be, someone knows probably pretty well which one each one is, but you can see this is the point that he's the master commander in chief, right? It's that game Halo.
North Korean style medallion density, medal density.
Oh yeah.
Were those challenge coins or were those badges? Some of them look like challenge coins.
That's exactly the same thing, bro. You want a challenge? Come and take it. That's kind of the vibe.
This is pretty bad because typically a challenge coin would be if you're at the bar, if you're in just any random place and you're having drinks. This is how it was explained to me in the military when they gave us our challenge coins. That someone's buying drinks. If you put a challenge coin down on the table and someone else can't match it or come up with two, then whoever doesn't have the challenge coin buys the drink. So by Trump showing off this huge collection of challenge coins is basically like saying, you can't beat me. Like, I'm drinking your milkshake.
Yeah, on a bigger level too, because he's saying that he has the support of the U.S. military and therefore the support of overseas military, right, and control over the world. And this idea that whether you want to call it an empire or not, whether you want to call proxy states or countries or whatever, in the grand scheme of the American industrial military complex, you're going to pay a tax to use that system. You want to trade, you're going to pay a tax. You want to exist, you're going to pay a tax. You want to go through these waters without pirates getting you, you're going to pay a tax, right? It's that sort of, and this is what the Babylonian, the Roman Empire did to states. They would take a percentage of the value from any of their economy, all of their trading, right? And that looks like where we're headed. We're headed towards a trade controlled by one state or the other, one empire or another empire. BRICS or America will control that. Someone was asking about Space Force. Did anyone think her V from Vendetta, spy versus spy necktie was kind of a inverted Space Force thing? Was that too much? Is the cravat too much of all the symbols? Maybe that's the one.
I don't think any of it's too much. If out of the entire family, I do feel like Melania probably has the deepest symbolism and maybe even the best understanding culturally and just like in a general sense. She probably understands the use of symbolism better than anybody.
Who's the Mortal Kombat hat guy?
Care.
Kung Lao. She's like Kung Lao. You know what I mean? For Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 2. Yeah, the one that slices him in half with the hat.
Yeah, that's where she's at right now. This is pretty much the vibe. Also, David's not here right now because there's a freaking fire in California. I mean, there's a bunch of fires in California, but right in Santa Cruz, where I'm from, and near David's house.
That's a dumb question, but
oh my God. So now that Trump's president, I'm sure the fires are going to start to go out, I guess. But until then, they're going to just play violins in the streets. But breaking a massive fire started at the power plant in Moss Landing. And Moss Landing is this weird hippy-dippy, nature preserve with these giant freaking towers. And they were terrified that this was going to spread. There's been all sorts of these problems with power in California. So, I mean, it's supposed to be this environmental wildfire. But doesn't it feel, like you said, kind of weird that, I mean, anything that we knew about P. Diddy, somebody knew 4 years ago. And so all of this stuff that started happening really quickly around the beginning of the election cycle seems like stuff that was already decided in the past. And it would be really practical to pretend not to be the president to draw fish out into the light for 4 years. You have Biden pretending to be this innocuous person that accepts all sorts of bribery deals and draw into the light people that you don't trust anymore. It could have been that the last 4 years have been a complete illusion and coup. Is that like too much of a psychological operation for you?
So whoever the Joe Biden actors were, that personality construct was the real ultimate honeypot. Am I getting that right?
Because Trump can now say, he's like, well, I wish I could put these people in jail, but I can't because there was a pardon, right? My hands are tied. Go ahead, Thomas.
I feel that there's also maybe a plan to make Hunter Biden a prodigal son. I've stated this before, but he makes the absolute perfect prodigal son. But you can't have the prodigal son unless the entire country knows about it. So that the last 4 years could have also been part of that, like staging him as this possible prodigal son redemption arc. Like you got to have the down before you can bring him back, right?
YMCA, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I mean, right? I don't know if they're all, because then the other thing is sweeping. Anything that they did is secret. We don't know exactly what it did. They're just pardoned for existing for the last 8 years. So maybe prodigal son. You think that Hunter Biden would make an all-American hero because he's so relatable?
He would need the correct feminine energy to balance him out. And I don't know if it's Tiffany Trump, but there's probably another female, maybe AOC Hunter Biden.
Liz Trump's underage. That's the kind of thing Hunter would go for, I imagine. But
right, but he's got another 10 years before he can viably run for president, right? Or maybe longer. Maybe he's got another 20 years, because I think we don't elect anyone that's under the age of 70 at this point, right? Or even
for now.
I think it's almost retirement age.
Do you think that's the point? It's just CIA retirement, to be the president, you no longer are necessary, so you suffer from infamia and you become the the face, the front man, like Elon Musk is or something.
Right, you're no longer allowed to drive a car, only a country.
What about the Bible? So everyone's all like, hey, you know, he didn't put his hand on the Masonic Bible, right? Do you get what I'm going with this already? Because it's not a normal Bible, and you shouldn't swear on a Bible. Like, a Christian knows this, and Mormons actually refuse to take oaths because the Bible, it's against your religion. If you're a Christian, the Bible says don't swear oaths. Jesus says don't swear oaths. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. The only reason you're swearing on a Masonic Bible is because of the Masonic part of the Bible, that you can swear oaths to the Brotherhood, to the Masons, right? So he didn't swear an oath to the Masons. He didn't put his hand on the Bible, even though he's done it before, or what? What's the deal with this?
I feel like maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I feel that all presidents should be taking oath to Masons, because otherwise, what are you even doing in that position?
Right. Agreed. Weird, isn't it? But like, if he didn't.
Well, one idea is that he already did it once before, so it's not necessary for him to do it again. And anyhow, he was always the commander-in-chief, so it's redundant. That's one idea I heard. And the other question would be, isn't he himself like a walking Masonic effigy or something, that it's just, you know, superfluous for him to do that? I don't know.
And what did Musk say? We will become a nation of builders again. If that doesn't mean that they're going to try and have like a Masonic resurgence, I don't know what else really would. Like, what could they have possibly meant by all that?
And the X logo?
She's such a freaking Mortal Kombat alien. Like, what is this outfit, man? Like, what are you even doing? This is so crazy. It's gotta mean
this could be a John Hughes movie too. The outfit.
Just the outfit itself. Oh man, where'd that go? I just had it a second ago. The pardon list. I had a list of things you could do. I made a presidential A presidential judicial pardon does not absolve individuals. I'll try to read it better. I apologize. Does not absolve individuals of all forms of liability. Right? Here are actions the current administration could consider against individuals unjustly pardoned by Biden within legal bounds. So, first off, you could have, civil asset forfeiture. It's funny using Facebook because it feels like MySpace as it was crumbling. Like, this whole app is so broken at this point. What are they even doing? Civil asset forfeiture. If corruption involves proven fraud, embezzlement, or other crimes, the federal government could seize assets tied to criminal activity through civil forfeiture. So couldn't this be something done to the Bidens anyway, right? Trump could easily force a civil asset forfeiture for any future crimes that he sees being committed. Or if he sees anything as a danger to the United States, he could just, without putting them in jail, he could just take all of their stuff, right? Take the Biden stuff.
I'm curious too, because this was I can't remember what this exact quote was. I think it was from that horrible movie with Tim Robbins and Meg Ryan about Einstein's daughter or whatever. But they make this this quote at the end of the movie that stuck with me ever since I heard it. And Einstein is basically telling his, Meg Ryan, he's like, when you read the news, pay attention to the articles that they're not writing about. Sometimes the topics that don't get written about are really what the most important news is. And I almost feel the same way with this pardon. You look at the names that are getting pardoned. I want to know what's up with all the names that didn't make the list. What about all the Biden family members that didn't get pardons? What's the story behind all of those?
Mm-hmm. Maybe out of sight, out of mind. They don't know what's going on exactly. But
maybe,
I think, it
would have been even cool if he gave Joe Biden a pardon on this too.
Do they have security clearances as well? Yeah, I think he gave pardons to the whole family today. It was this week. It was just earlier before, like hours before inauguration. So he made sure it was right up until inauguration that he pardoned
as you
them.
do. This is the Clinton equivalent of selling all the furniture on the way out.
Yeah, but it does feel like they did something then, or they've been doing the entire time for the last. That's what they've been up to, and trying to dismantle the old world order for the last 4 years makes the most sense, right? Why is everything dropping and falling apart and being handed over to new leaders?
Hear me out too. Maybe this is a dumb idea, but we could have an American Idol style, like public competition to see who gets pardons. Maybe there's like 10 pardons in addition to the ones the president's going to give out anyways for favors and political bias, but straight up 10 that the rest of the country can call in as many times as you're willing to spend, $3.99 on the 800 number, and then vote for get Ross out. Maybe they can finally free Mumia. They can do all of the names and just take like a general consensus throughout the zeitgeist of the country and determine who like the top 10 country funded sort of pardons are going to be. I almost feel like that would be an interesting precedent.
I mean, the more pardons you do, like that's the other thing. I mean, it seems like the highest pardons any president has had hasn't been during wartime. So before Trump, doing 237 pardons, it was, not common to see that many more. Like Bill Clinton did like 1,600. Gore did a lot as well. But the biggest number were people during wartime. So particularly World War II, you have a bunch of people pardoned during World War II for all sorts of things, probably close to crimes against humanity, right? 5,000 or 6,000 people were pardoned by FDR.
They don't seem to be as powerful. I feel like it would be even more powerful, though, if you could give someone a preemptive pardon, like almost like a second anointing in a way, where you say that, hey, we trust your judgment so much. We know that you love this country so much. Here's a preemptive pardon to just do whatever you need to do over the next 4 years. Not, we're going to forgive anything you may or may not have done that hasn't come to light yet over the last 4 years. I mean, over the last 10 years. Give them, a preemptive pardon, something that lets you move with a little bit more authority. Because a past pardon, I don't know, I don't like to dwell on the past. I like to look to the future.
I mean, what do you think? Is that like useful? Kurt, do you have thoughts on pardons? You know how like Biden pardoned his whole family, like not just his son. He made sure that they were all pardoned for anything they might have done. I mean, how cool is that? You could do all sorts of things for America.
Testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Great.
Greatly. Grandiosely.
Okay. Awesome. No, none of that. I don't know. I don't think any of the Biden pardons were surprising, nor were the Trump ones. I mean, Trump said normally Trump, when it comes to campaign promises, he's always been like actually very follow through with his campaign promises. So even if he is a compulsive liar, like he's at least, tried to stick to, campaign topics. Pardoning is a tool, and it's hard to say anything one way or the other about it because a lot of things are very important. Like, in terms of perspective, because, for example, with the Capitol riot, that we're allowed to apparently talk about now, there is the perspective that it's a public space. It's a public space that is close to the public, and there's a big sense of elitism around Washington, et cetera, et cetera. That is a perspective, and if that is the correct perspective, then yes, I don't know. I'm making this overly complicated. I'm very sorry about this, but it's important to pay attention to every side of a perspective, because one thing that we think is bad according to societal norms might not be bad in 20 years. So what would be the point in pardoning people for selling weed? Am I right? Now we think that is kind of a culturally acceptable thing. But if you look at T.O.P., he's the Korean rapper that was on Squid Game. Yeah, he's getting a lot of fame now. But he was actually, his reputation was tarnished very badly by using weed in South Korea.
Oh, what a scumbag. Jeez.
Yeah, I know. How terrible, right? But there are situations. It's a tool. It's a tool like anything else.
But like, I mean, that's what Biden did. Biden pardoned a bunch of people who smoked weed. Like, okay, we got a bunch of pardons for that. But he also pardoned Fauci, Milley, and the entire January 6th panel, right? The J6 panel. That's a lot of. That's why would you pardon a panel? Right. I mean, the panel just did an unbiased, just, swift, and fairly just job of judicial, right? What could they possibly be pardoned for?
Is there
Except if it's
such
a conspiracy, right?
is there such a thing as lack of bias in the political sphere? It's maybe not. I don't know. But there's a certain set of expected political mudslinging that's going to go on, and it should not be surprising. And I'm not saying that's makes it right or wrong, but the least of it all is surprising. Hopefully it isn't. But maybe we just have short memories as a country. There's a lot to unpack. Did you bring up the whole Elon Musk thing just yet?
Not yet.
We're slowly wading through that. I was actually expecting another presidential pardon from Biden to the Bush family for just 2 years, 1963 and 1999, for no specific reason at all. But I just figured that was going to be in there. And as a devil's advocate for the question of like why even pardon, or does it matter for the nonviolent drug offenses? The devil's advocate side of that is that because they broke the law at the time it was illegal, therefore undermining the law itself. This is also the concept that why is like murder not the number one on the 10 commandments? Why are all of the more strict commandments all have to do with adultery and cheating and stealing and lying? It's because those things undermine society. They affect the society at large as opposed to just one individual. So like, if you murder one person, that affects that person's life and maybe like a small circle. But if you basically sow distrust in society itself, now you're a detriment to millions of people, maybe even more. So that makes them more serious crimes. And I think that's the argument that sometimes is used about why don't we just pardon everyone that's ever, gone to jail for any sort of non-violent drug offense if these guys get pardoned? It's because devil's advocate at the time, they weren't just breaking the law for themselves. They were undermining the law, and they were basically a catalyst for dissolving societal norms as we know them.
Yeah.
Is that what he's doing? Because he's trying to make he's trying to make Melania into like she looks like a priest maybe here. So is this Masonic? Is this Masonic apotheosis? He's trying to say he's become a god.
Do I need to make a Holy Mountain Melania shirt? I think that might be next on the deck.
But I feel like that maybe this is part of the apotheosis, is to say like he doesn't make an oath in front of God. He is God. Like you let your yes be yes and your no be no. I mean, that's some Mormon idea. That's not a satanic idea.
No, all those were really good points, and it's like we've created the law to be like our sort of, I don't know, voodoo doll. Like you can't mess with the voodoo doll, or else like the entire fabric of reality might unfold. That's the way. It's like we have to attempt to draw lines in the sand so that people at least have a shared collection of something that ties them together. Like, okay, at least we decided that something's wrong. Because if we can't even decide that something is wrong, then everything is just okay. And that's when, it's just absolute chaos. So it doesn't matter, if we decide that weed is wrong, or we think giving people, the middle finger is wrong, we can throw you in jail. It's just like, well, we agreed upon it at the time, or else, what do you get with lawlessness? I don't know. Maybe there's an anarchist counter argument to all that.
I don't know. It's almost like the rule of don't cross the streams, not because anything will actually happen, but because you have to assign some form of logic and reason to what otherwise seems completely illogical. It seems absolutely supernatural. If you bound it in mundane terms by saying like, hey, ghosts exist and plasma beams exist and all this afterlife, but we're not going to talk about religion. We're not going to talk about anything beyond that. And also don't cross the streams. There's rules to this sort of like supernatural pseudoscience.
No, the law is pseudoscience. I'm a fan of that statement, though. There's a beautiful, wonderful statement in that. But yeah, certainly the law is something we try to make concrete, of course. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is based in our collective imaginations and I guess ambitions as well. So I don't know how that relates to pardons. I mean, it's a good point where, pardoning could be seen as undermining that whole process. But if you're undermining that whole process, maybe you're just doing surgery on, what you think those societal agreements should be. Because if the societal agreements are not factually based in reality, eventually they will dissolve of their own accord, off of being, not kosher. I use the word
Maybe.
kosher.
Well, they don't necessarily dissolve. What happened, I guess, in a practical sense, what happens is that they just stop getting enforced until it's convenient for them to be, right? Like, there's still like those silly laws about like you can beat your wife in public as long as it's on a Tuesday in the stairs in front of like a Capitol building. Like, there's a lot of those versions, or you can't wear green after St. Patrick's Day. Is that one of the laws? But it's not that they necessarily dissolve or get strucken out, because the law books only get bigger. They never really get smaller. So it's just a matter of nobody cares about them anymore until they do.
Oh yeah, and that's the law is dangerous in that it can be weaponized, I guess, in that manner. Like, if we really wanted to, we could give people citations for not carrying lamps in the front of their car at night in a lot of states, because, cars initially did not have headlights. Like, you had to have a way to, light your safe.
That's one of
way
the
down
scariest things about technocracy to me, right? So you think about people wanting to replace corrupt police and systems with robots. And an example of this that might be good is Croatia. So Croatia used to be a pretty fun little country after the war, and you could do pretty much anything if you were like able to bribe a police officer, because police officers were paid so little that they had to support their families on such a small check that it was pretty much assumed that they were going to take bribes instead of tickets as much as possible. So what that meant was people racing on these tiny little roads at 100 miles an hour or 110 miles an hour, these tiny little roads. And then they would just have to pay off the police officer like 10 or 15 bucks on a Saturday, or 20 bucks eventually on a Saturday. And that became completely normal for all walks of life, any kind of drugs they wanted to do. And if you were super wealthy and you were involved with the mafia, like, you could basically own people and kill people to an extent up until like 2003 to 2007. And they started moving in with the EU cameras. So now you have these camera systems everywhere. And the way cameras work is they pick up on what you're doing and they check it against a book of rules, and they see if you're breaking any of those rules. And if you have a really archaic legal system from Napoleon that has tens of thousands of unnecessary laws, then what you'll find is everyone's breaking rules all the time. There's no way to exist without constantly breaking one rule or another rule. So it's just, this is a world that we live in that we have to actually not follow the rules because we don't have the time to go through and remove all of these. Like, do you have a lantern on the front of your car, like a chariot or something? I think is a great example. There are probably plenty of places where there are rules like that, and we don't have time to look through and find all those rules to get rid of them. So what do we do in a system where we've created too many rules to follow, right? We ignore them on purpose, and everyone's a criminal.
So I briefly have a question.
I can get that one out. I like that sentiment.
Going back to the pardoning thing, so Trump just pardoned, as it says here on AP, pardon of January 6 defendants, including rioters who violently attacked police. So this event,
the J6 hostages, they're called.
Right, but this event originally occurred on January 6th, 2021. May I ask you, who was the sitting president at that time, officially?
Trump was the president technically for the last few days.
And why did he not just take a look at the FBI files, be like, okay, basically I sent those guys in there, whatever then happened with the Capitol Police that suddenly, I don't know, forgot to guard the building or whatever happened?
So either Blue Anon's real, and they've all been working with each other, and this was all part of some plan from the beginning, or like after the quarantine war, and Trump had already won by that point, or there was all what's the other option? That Trump couldn't get access to the information because the FBI had clandestine paramilitary organizations like the Pinkertons that they were working through in order to avoid having a federal paper trail.
Well, there might be a correlation here too to the Reagan hostage crisis, right? Where the only way that the
Pawns in the
hostages were going to
game.
get released if you vote the right president in, and any other circumstance they don't get released. So it becomes one additional incentive in order to bolster the polls.
And then assuming the whole imprisonment was real and not very nice, and I'm like, oh, cool, to be president, I'll gladly put dozens of my own supporters in jail for 2-3 years. I mean, people have done worse, I guess, but it's not very gentlemanlike, if you ask me.
Right. It seems like very specific, or unless it's in order to infiltrate prisons to understand like the prison networks as well, because you have to understand the organized crime from the center inside out. And, you know, Epstein shows that a lot of people in prison were treated very, very well. Like not a lot of people, but a few very specific people were treated very, very well by prison systems. And so to figure out who they are, maybe there's some sort of a push to have an excuse to put them all into prisons. I don't know. I mean, the people you've interacted with from January 6th been kind of kind of weird? Like Q Shaman, does he seem like completely on the up and up to you? I don't know.
We don't talk about him anymore after the big event. But
yeah,
I wonder too, like in a hypothetical sense, maybe even you guys, but is it a net positive or a net negative that you have to go to federal prison for, I don't know, 4 years, but on the tail end of that, you become a lifelong sort of like social studies trivia factoid. You get a presidential pardon. You likely become relevant as opposed to fading into obscurity. This is something that I think that you could find way more than just a handful of people voluntarily signing themselves up.
A book deal. That. Oh yeah, there are plenty of people that are willing to serve their time. There's probably going to be
a couple documentaries on it. Yeah, like you become an actual person as opposed to a name that just gets printed in the obituary that nobody reads.
The American dream, from dishwasher to being pardoned by the president.
The camera seems to be reflective. Sorry. All right. Well, did you want to talk about fascism, Kurt? Is that what you were looking forward to? Is that what you wanted, Kurt? Is that what you wanted?
It all comes back to Elon Musk. Good old Elon. So no,
stop trying to make fascism happen. No,
no. So like a lot of people I think just seen the still and didn't watch the video, but Elon straight up did the Nazi salute. Like
no.
It's the Roman salute. Well, either
there's a huge difference. You know the difference, right? I'm not legally allowed to show you the difference.
Okay, one.
The difference is that the Roman salute, which isn't really, there's not really a thing called the Roman salute. The Balami salute comes from your heart and goes out over from your heart. It's not like from your head, right? It comes out from your heart. That's the reason it's completely different. But okay.
So if he's signaling Rome, I think that means he wants us to slowly fade into obscurity. I don't think either option.
There was no. Again, it's not really the Roman salute. See, it's the Francis Balami salute, right? Balami
and that had,
was he was a Christian.
Are we claiming this had absolutely no influence on the Nazi salute? Is that what the
correct?
Claim is?
That's we're getting to that point. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Let's start with the difference. First off, Francis Julius Balami was a Christian Socialist Baptist minister. I believe he was also a Freemason. And he was known for writing the original version of the Pledge of Allegiance for the United States flag. Okay? It's the United States flag. So you know the story.
1931.
All right. These kids here. So this is them. They're showing it right before they do it.
Died right before major world wars, I think.
Look at that. This is how American kids everywhere used to pledge allegiance to the flag. They would put their hands on their hearts, and then they would put their hands out towards the flag. This is an American tradition. I don't know if I've got the picture somewhere here.
Obviously, I'm not that well versed in American trivia. But why did it take them so long to develop such a pledge? If America is 1776 and 200 years later, they're thinking of this.
1892, you could say it's really 100 years after America didn't have a Pledge of Allegiance for the first 100 years because America wasn't fully social. Like the World's Fair Athenian ideology hadn't been cemented and imprinted, right?
Yeah, we weren't quite socialist just yet.
No, not just that. We weren't quite fascist just yet, but we were becoming it. Americans at the time were Confederates, right? They had a Confederated Articles of Confederation until 1791. And after the federal government installed itself, it really wasn't until the 1860s when federalism, I mean, we're not calling it fascism, we're calling it federalism. But federalism is exactly that, right? It's this idea of creating this fascist state. And so they were showing that we had this goddess empire that is Columbia, the goddess Columbia in America. And eventually we said in 1942 that we were going to stop doing that because where's my page here? I think 1920s, 1930s, the Italian fascists started doing salutes and the Nazis had their own kind of salute, which was similar, to an extent. Although it comes from the mind instead of the heart. And I think that's an interesting distinction that's worth making. If your salute comes from your heart, I think it is different. And if you notice, Elon Musk does from the heart twice. So I'm just saying, it's not
the worst. The double Nazi. The double Nazi is the worst kind of Nazi.
In this case, it's null and void because does he even have a heart? In case of Elon Musk, it's not so clear.
Americans did this into the 20th century, into the 30s, into the 40s. It was 1942 that America finally starts in the middle of World War II to say we're going to differentiate ourselves from doing the hand forward thing, and we're going to put the hand on the heart instead of doing the hand forward thing. And they wanted to add under God, right? And this is the other sus thing, is that they said under God all of a sudden. The original Bellamy Pledge of Allegiance just says one nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all. And they've added one nation under God, right? Liberty, justice for all. So this whole thing is weird. We get rid of one thing, we add another, and it's all in some sort of reaction to say we're differentiating ourselves from Germany and Italy in the 40s.
Well,
so
on the
maybe
on the Nazi belt buckle, they had written Gott mit uns, which means God on our side. The first treaty that they did was with the Vatican. There's a lot of...
We have an eagle. They have an eagle. What about look at this. Look at my passport. You see what's this bird holding? Let me pull it up a little bigger.
What is the bird of prey holding?
Is that a fasces? The arrows held together?
It could be. All it has to, for it to be a fasces, it just needs to be a bundle of rods that are joined by like a leather strap of some kind, right?
Yeah, hey, I'm pretty sure that's a fasces.
Don't let the sins of the U.S. ruin my pooping on Elon Musk here. No, it's
fair enough.
Now,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. No, it's how powerful is symbolism, and I think with all these right-wing politics, signing signing an order, declaring two genders. When you're really that passionate about symbolism, it means you give credence to it and you actually take it seriously. And then you have Elon Musk, who essentially undermines that whole process by saying, "Oh, it's just a joke. It's just a Roman salute." It's like, well, how seriously can we take symbolism? How much is this really about drawing lines in the sand, or is it just about
it's not just a joke, and it's not even a Roman salute. Like, in fact, there's no evidence that the Romans ever actually did this sort of
I'm
salute.
Sorry for calling it Roman salute.
Okay? I'm sorry for being such a ninny, but still, it is a sign of going back to tradition, because Americans used to do this thing, and he's returning to the ideas of the Bellamy salute and Pledge of Allegiance and American nationalism and American imperialism. So it's more about America than it is about Germany, right? And he's a Zionist. So I don't think that he's Jewish, right? So I don't think he's necessarily super into Germany to begin with, unless it's just from an aesthetic point of view. And even then, he's more into this like turtleneck thing anyway. He's like a West Berliner.
If the question is how serious do we take the symbolism, let's just assume you take it very seriously, of the utmost importance. And in a like Carlos Castaneda tensegrity /OA style, the movement itself could actually have very real ramifications in our regular physical world, right? So when they suppress that and they introduce the how to be a player Bill Bellamy salute and they do away with that, and they say under God, and now you cover your heart the entire time, again in that tensegrity way, in that Carlos Castaneda OA energy sort of release way. If you say everything and you're keeping your hand over your heart, then you're keeping it all towards yourself, and you're not giving it out to the rest of the world like Elon does, right? That motion seems like it would be incredibly different. It's almost a complete inversion. One of them keeps everything inside and to the individual, which is visible, right? That is you dividing yourself on your heart versus everyone's putting their heart out into the world. It is complete opposite. So if you do think that symbolism matters, then I think that the difference between these two salutes makes all the difference in the world.
I may be wrong. Maybe he's not Jewish. Is his name just Jewish because Elon is, Tree of Life or something, and he's not at all? I don't know. I thought he was. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I thought he was Jewish. Or maybe he's not. I don't know. I could be wrong, Nihidar. Let me know if anyone finds out if I missed some point there.
So you had recently started to learn about human design, and one of the tropes there is that supposedly around this time there would be a shift, if I recall correctly, from the locus of consciousness, from somewhere the third eye or whatever, down to the heart. So, and generally speaking, of course, a more heart-centered approach would do the world good. Let's hope that this is what it means, although it's very curious, of course, coming from Musk out of all individuals. But all right. Oh, David.
David, is Santa Cruz on fire, and is Elon Musk Jewish? Answer in whichever order you want.
No, I sent you had like a scheduled. They shut down. They do that in California, like
fake news,
relatively regularly.
It's a conspiracy. Clearly,
it just so happened to be like 9 to 2, so I'm just like, okay, great. But I was up last night, like later than I'd normally be, because I got annoyed that I hardly ever use Facebook, but Facebook like gave me a strike for sharing a screenshot of what Ye shared that got him kicked off of Twitter.
Oh dear! So the Raelian symbol.
So I sent.
Are you even allowed to say Raelian in the country you're in right now?
I know, right? So
I just brought it up earlier today too. Raelian is the second or third time I've said it. I was in a coffee shop earlier. Let's just put it up and see if it gets our stream in trouble. Here's the symbol for Raelianism.
Right. So I gave a pretty good, what I felt was a pretty good explanation. Maybe I'll actually, like, if you don't mind, it's pretty short. Maybe I'll just
pull it up. I think this is really. I'm glad you say this, just because Elon. I think literally the conversation was, Elon Musk, he's a Raelian, isn't he? That's what.
Oh, really?
That's how it went earlier today in a coffee shop.
So it's an oversight board. So it's like a third party. It's not even Facebook, but I've given my explanation written to them, and they give you an option to like make it like so that if they respond to you, can it be private or can it be public? Can they use your name or whatever? So I was like, use it. Say it. I'll put it on blast. So I wrote to them. I wrote, Raelism, an organized religion that's existed since the 1970s, uses the combination of two ancient symbols to be representative of their core beliefs. The musician Ye, formerly Kanye West, was removed from X, formerly Twitter, for sharing this symbol that belongs to said organization, of which Musk is an honorary member, as is displayed on their official website. Whatever views Ye happens to hold is irrelevant in regard to the symbol in question. It is not a, quote, hate symbol, as both components that make up the symbol are derived from ancient traditions such as Buddhism and Judaism, among others like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, alchemy, etc. And this organization has communicated that these schools of thought are the reason why they've combined these geometrical symbols as such. Thank you for your time. I hope you respond appropriately. I feel like this is something Thomas deals with a lot too, this kind of thing, like.
Well, I'm actually wondering if the tides are turning a little bit, not in a good way, but just in an inversion way, because I often go on Reddit because I just want to see what new psyops are going to be released. It's sort of like the release schedule for what you can expect in the coming months. And one of the things that I saw on Reddit this morning that people were freaking out about was that they were logging in and seeing that not only were these very left-leaning accounts now auto-following Trump and JD Vance official accounts, but that the hashtags for like Democrat was being censored the exact same way that, say, if you wanted to share a spicier hashtag like 6 or 12 months ago, that would have been an instant sort of ban, or at least put you into one of those black timeout corners.
Instagram had a new thing where it asked me, is like, the algorithm is changing. Do you want to have more, less, or the same amount of political content? Like, you could turn up and down, like, how much political content do you want to see, basically. I mean, they're already starting to change and roll it out as like type 2. What about World Federalism?
One of those smart thermostats where it's like, well, if it's 2 o'clock on a Wednesday, give me way more. But if it's like 9 o'clock on a Friday, like a little bit less.
So
this is a good usage for the Neuralink or whatever else. They just measure your blood pressure and so on, and will allocate accordingly. Why I brought up this World Federalism and Provisional World Parliament? First of all, they have a nice logo, I think. But the World Federalism seems to be one of these like strange background institutions. And we spoke about, I guess, federalism earlier and kind of like world government. And I'm not sure, this is kind of seems what people have been moving towards, or power players, for a long time. I don't really trust it, because they always claim, here it says distinction to unitary world government. And it says that the difference would be subsidiarity, which means, local control. I don't know if
and
that's
you don't have to be a
real
state.
thing.
United Nations are only for states. World citizens would include trading partners like Taiwan, etc., and a federal.
Wait. Well, I'm just trying to follow. I mean, I'm quick to oppose things like this, but what is the complaint about that exactly? Because isn't that the fear, is that the one world government will most likely be the result of one nation or a few nations like dominating the rest of the world through military strength? So you're saying that this has a safeguard for that, or is this? Or
well, what I'm saying is, this is even what we learned in school, and I only had very low level contact with the local youth group, because there are European federalists in every country, at least in Europe, organized. It has a strange connection to, what's his name, Coudenhove Kalergi, this Japanese Austrian guy or whatever he was, and Otto von Habsburg, who was playing around with the pan-Europa, and this also all kind of ties into this federalist idea. And the only thing I could tell back then, at least from that youth group, they said, and the same would apply for the bigger groups or main group, we are for democracy, sovereignty, and subsidiarity. Then I hear this is like one of these organizations that in the background is organizing UN meetings for climate change 20 years ago already. Like, they are the real power behind the thing, not this parliament, but the World Federalists themselves. And then, just in terms of how they acted, this local youth group, this was 20 years ago maybe now, and back then they wanted to do a new contract for the European Union, whichever treaty it was back then. And for some reason, the Czech president was against it, maybe because there was the first inclusion of EU battle groups or whatever else they were planning in terms of centralization. And this supposed youth group that should be for subsidiarity, democracy, and sovereignty, instead of engaging with them or saying, well, it's your right, to object or to have it amended, all they did literally was a marketing campaign where they sent pens to this Czech president, I think he was Czech, basically in terms of like, well, sign it already, you make up your swear word here. So just completely opposite as to what they were proclaiming themselves to be. So on paper, it sounds nice, but so far, I'm not sure if the subsidiarity principle that they claim they uphold is really being executed to any extent. So that's my main contention here.
Trump seems like he might take, if we're headed towards one world government, but I feel that he's going to take the American capitalist approach. It's not going to be about union and subsidiaries and people voluntarily joining. This is him doing a hostile takeover. It's saying, we're just going to buy Canada and we're going to buy Mexico, and now you're just America, whether you like it or not, because we own you. We paid the money, and now it's going to be Gulf of America. And just by making that printed on all the maps, but it's a different strategy for the same end, right? Like the EU, they were talking about making the Amero, just like there was the Euro, right? The Euro kind of preceded the European Union in a way, or at least it helps solidify that context. And we never got the Amero in that same way, unless you want to count maybe like the Trump coin could be the Amero. But I think that this is just another approach where you just purchase the things that are resisting, and now they just become that because you own them.
Right.
Oh, you mentioned previously he's a Zionist, right? In terms of buying something, right? To make the reality. Well, whatever it is, but just from what I understand, even historically, the land has been gradually bought up, right? And this may be a similar principle in some ways, right?
Is building a meme coin for each one of your family members really a sign that you care so much about creating one economy or another? I mean, if everyone can use shill coins to exist, that's probably, I don't know. I mean, it seems like you get a bunch of people. It's like Star Wars, right? At least from the Clone Wars episodes, where they build the Trade Federation to fight against the Republic so that eventually they both fall into the Empire. Right? And this is all about building an empire. It just seems like it's all about making money off of you can own the lanes that boats are going through. The Panama Canal is actually a decent metaphor for what they want to do for everything. They're like, you're going to do stuff and we're going to get a cut. You're going to do anything, we're going to get a cut of everything.
Wasn't there a repeated issue with like the Panama Canal in like recent years? Like I think even during the Trump presidency where ships were getting stuck in the Panama Canal because it's an issue of like sand versus rock as far as like what like the massive ships are trying to send through there. I mean, this is how congested, how extreme is it for that to be the one pathway between rather than going all the way around? And so that was the argument. There's a whole conspiracy.
Well, he was just pissed. He's just pissed that they had the Chinese take over to do it for them because they didn't have very strong infrastructure.
Right. Well, he's talking about Gaza today, right? Or was that last night, where he's saying like how beautiful Gaza is and how, just it looks like this demolition, like what's gonna be the future of Gaza? Like he
airport and a mall.
But this was the argument for the whole. It goes beyond like the treatment of it, where it's like a dock or whatever. This was a seriously considered and probably still considered possibility for adding to the issue surrounding the Panama Canal, because if you were to make a line through Gaza, if you look at the territorial map, the amount that this has been discussed is like, I mean, it's a lot. So like, and the terrain of that area would be totally different than the Panama Canal, which is super like, sandy.
What are you saying to build a canal? Are you saying to build a canal through Gaza?
That's the argument. Yeah. If you look into that, you'll find a lot. It's like, that's been a discussion going back quite a ways. And it's something that's seriously been considered.
The Ben Gurion Canal. Okay. So they want to moat the whole thing out.
Even the name of that is Israel's first prime minister. The proposal is named after their, their founding as such, as a state. So yeah,
well, I mean, it's like that scene in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Like you just wipe out anything that was there, it's completely gone forever. So, dang.
So this is something that people have been, very concerned about in regards to like what the plans are for Gaza. I don't know.
Crazy.
Why can't there be more conflicts over these highly contested? Like, for example, why don't we have a Palestinian versus Israeli like Straits of Gibraltar, or even how like between Tunisia and the bottom of Sicily? Like, why aren't those so highly contested for the same reasons?
I mean, there's people living here, so I mean, and there's people living anywhere there's people living, it's going to be contested. And has that been seriously considered, like in terms of planning? Like, is that?
I mean, I would argue at least that the passage between Tunisia and Sicily is just as relevant now as it was during the Punic Wars, right? Yet there's almost no sort of controversy over that particular area. And I mean, I'm not advocating for more, but I'm just wondering, why isn't there more conflict over these areas as much so as anywhere else in the world? Is it purely?
Yeah, why is it really just two people? Why did they get to why is it only two groups fighting over it, you're saying?
Or maybe that, I'm theorizing, maybe that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is sort of a proxy to sort of fill in for all of the possible wars and turbulence that could be going on in the Strait of Gibraltar between Morocco and Spain, or between Sicily and
well, yeah, we don't hear a lot about the pirate wars, but yeah, that's the other thing, is like, because of the Suez Canal, there's all of the Eritrean and Ethiopian Somalian pirates, right? Which is the whole reason that we want tariffs, because we're protecting the waters. It's the naval trade.
Suez Canal. I'm sorry. I honestly.
No. I really actually
Oh yeah, no, I'm trying to process this. Yeah, no, when I'm talking
interesting
about
to bring up
on
how
the Suez Canal. Yeah, no, it's too early for me. But yeah, no, but it's the
Ben
principle
Gurion
that
Canal could
still
happen.
applies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. How about the JFK thing? Raf sent me this thing earlier because we're talking about the releasing of all the, not just JFK, but also Martin Luther King and the entire 60s. They want to release all the files, right? What are they going to do?
But they released it, and he's just like, we couldn't get the black ink off the paper, so you're gonna have to just see what we've got to see. Like they don't have any hard copies that haven't already been blotted out.
Already happened for all intents and purposes. I mean, the what he was released already was redacted, so he dangled that this would, this would all be released, but then we looked at just all this redacted paperwork. So I don't know.
So you think that it's going to stay redacted?
I think it's going to stay redacted until the Bush dynasty is no longer feasible, but that's not in our lifetimes. I think the Bush dynasty outlives everyone that's watching right now, because they're going to have progeny that keep going on, and you can't fully release the JFK tapes without also absolutely dismantling the Bush dynasty, unless there's like a Bush detractor, like Jenna Bush comes out, or one of the other Bush daughters is like, I disavow everything that my great-great-grandfather did, all the way from stealing the bones of Geronimo to making JFK Jr.'s plane fall out of the sky, all of it. Like, yes, it all happened, and I was against it.
So just to briefly comment on this video, the main point here being there's just a question to what extent is also Trump, part of whatever elite clubs, because there was this famous interview with Newt Gingrich a few years ago where he said like, oh, Trump is not part of any club, he's so independent and so on, although he has his golden Apollo room and all of that. And the question just being whether this is part of a psyop, to the extent that people would be made to believe, oh, finally someone who's not part of the club, hooray. But actually that's just optics basically, and he is the very top of the club in terms of what is visible.
What is the club? I mean, what is ego? Like not just in terms of like identification with thought forms, but like ultimately like what is the driving force of everything that's happening here? Like what is the club really? I don't know. Like that's the thing. Like
it's just Masons all the way down, I think. And honestly, if you just take it from a practical, not even like a tongue-in-cheek standpoint, but you've got operative Masons and speculative Masons, and Trump by nature is basically a speculative Mason, right? He doesn't build anything himself, yet he constructs these massive buildings, and he talks about foundations and like basically just hustling real estate. I think that he is the most pragmatic like he is on the cusp, the perfect blend of operative and speculative in that case. He speculates and then he makes it happen. Like there's not a lot of other Masons that can claim one shoe on each side like that.
Did Solomon get his hands dirty? You know what I mean?
Well, he's had to summon demons out of the Red Sea and get the purple pillar out of there somehow.
I think it was that, we've discussed this before, is that weird caterpillar looking thing.
Solomon was pardoned for all that though. Yeah, is Donald Trump really King Solomon? Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, you were saying like you're talking about the builder and then the master mason, and you're like, does the master mason even get his hands dirty? Was more my question, But like,
I mean, traditionally, yes, but that was there's you've got a master mason in operative masonry, and you've got a master mason in speculative masonry, right? Operative meaning the guys that actually did things with their hands and knew how to take the measurements, and the speculative was when the kings and like the rich kids of royalty were like, I want to be in that club too, but I don't want to hurt myself, right? So then it was like, okay, let them in, but they can just watch and take notes. And then at a certain point, they overtook that. You can see the exact same thing happen with Bohemian Grove, where it started as a bunch of artists and bohemians and performers and musicians, and over time, rich people wanted to get involved, and then it actually hit like a turning point where there was now more rich people in Bohemian Grove, and now it's just like the actual bohemians are kind of invited to entertain them for little bouts, but they're no longer the real part of Bohemian Grove. The same kind of thing happened between operative and speculative.
Watching the speech yesterday, like with everybody present, with freaking the whole gang there, pretty much, I got the same sense that I've generally gotten from Trump, that he looks like the guy who wasn't invited to the parties, who's just like standing there, just like telling them, what he thinks of them, and it feels like if there's a place to find equity, like within the political like hierarchy, like it feels like some crazy compensation thing where it's like, even like if you were to look at Alan Abedessa Green's like video Hindsight 2020 and the way that he shows that press correspondence dinner where they just roasted the hell out of him, you know, and he's just sitting there, and then you can kind of see the whole future in that moment of that he's now going to show them, you know. It's like it just feels like he's showing all those people that wouldn't let him go to those parties, you know, because he's got his big mouth or whatever judgments they have on him, you know. So yeah, it's like revenge of the outcast, you know, who always wanted to be so included, you know. And he's like, I'm included with all of these people, and I'm not included with you, you know. Like, especially like when you look at like Bill and Hillary, you know, where they're like they encouraged him to run like they did, you know. It just feels like this is what you get. It's so much. It's such fuck around and find out kind of stuff, you know. It's like you guys all like did this.
Let's Pied Piper Tony Clifton into president. That'll never work. And now we got Tony Clifton as president.
That's exactly what it is. And in fact, I'm waiting for him to pull his mask off and for it to be Andy Kaufman under there. You know, like anything is possible. You know, that's more probable than the Alex
Trump starts challenging women to like wrestle him on live TV.
Everything about it, the WWF aspect of it, right? I mean, wasn't he like huge on WWF way back in the 80s? You know, like that was, yeah, dude, it's all there. Oh, Andreas, you're muted. Or now, okay.
Now,
there you go.
does it work now?
Yeah.
So we're better now? Can you hear me? Okay. The change in the tone of the media freaks me out. Not like too bad, but you know, just the way the media was completely against Trump to a level that was unheard of before. It was insane. It was turned up way too high in his first term. You know, like the Bush stuff. Remember, Bush stuff was like lighthearted and funny. We're like, Bush, he's fun. He's a cowboy. He eats pretzels. I mean, it was all because he's a clown on purpose and everything. But the whole getting people to hate Trump thing, or I don't know, it seemed like it was turned up too high. And then now it feels like it's turned down. It's turned off. Like they just literally.
Is it? They seem still hung up on Nazi rhetoric. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think so. But maybe I'm thinking of it like Wilhelm Reich or something, or maybe it's because I'm in Vienna. But I keep feeling like the more they try to sexualize or repress a taboo or whatever they're doing, the more they're making people want this thing. Like, I'm a Nazi person. I want to do these things I'm not allowed to do. And what are those things? You know what you want to do? You want to wear leather and boots and walk through the streets and become a Nazi. It's like they're tricking people into it, I feel like, is all.
Right. Well, the left doesn't have a concept of redemption, really. Like that's something that they've just, it's completely gone, you know? So like, I don't, you know, there is no, this is Darth Vader shit. Like the by his merits, you know, like, and everything is about merits right now. Like it's tripping me out. Like I totally said that yesterday. It's Martin Luther King Day, whatever. And I'm like, there's that whole issue of like the difference between equality and equity, right? So it's like equality is all about, you know, judging people by their merit, you know, and like now instead of something that's superficial, like topical, like your skin color or whatever the hell it is. And so, you know, I feel like that's the real shift that's taking place. And it's so poignant that would be like that the inauguration would happen on Martin Luther King Day, you know, like what everything that implies, you know what I mean? Like
small correction. I believe it's pronounced Molk Day. The sacrifice ritual was called Molk, MLK, Molk,
Yeah.
Molk.
Right. I've heard this. Okay, thank you.
I don't think that's just a cope. I mean, what about the Tartarian architecture reestablishment? They're going to promote beautiful civic architecture again. They want to start building neoclassical buildings all over America and America all over the world. Right? So if we build cities in Greenland, they're going to look like this, like the White House. Kind of like Washington,
Are
DC.
they going to build them or are they going to found them?
Ooh,
snap. So it's weird that they're all white, you know, like the White House in the first place, because wasn't that the thing with like Rome and Greece that these were all painted, these like all these different colors, but it's just like over time we just see them as white, and then they keep representing Athens as everything is white.
I mean, Like Vienna, like if you go outside in Vienna, like it's like that. It's like neoclassical buildings that are all painted with colors. Not every single one of them, but like for the most part, they're different. Like
Yeah.
gold and all that, right? Yeah, you know, Russia
They
more, I'm
could,
sure.
they could update the White House like they do when a rapper dies in the Bronx, and they just come out and they like spray paint the rapper on like the side of the wall. They could do
Well,
that
now
every 4 years.
They project the
LEDs.
colors onto it for LGBTQR XRQ24Z. You know, they just put all the the
As
rainbow.
long as that's a
that
light
Elon
bulb
Musk
instead of a
his name?
person. Well, that's another thing. They like established there's only two genders. Like he executive ordered, there's only two genders in America. Did you see that? So
Is this true? I mean, it sounds like a joke, but I also believe that is a real thing that happened. Like before you can even apply for any sort of benefit, you have to acknowledge, like you have to fill in one of the two bubbles.
I mean, you have to do that for your driver's license and every document for your passport and everything. Yeah, you've got one or the other because you're trying to identify you. It's like if you said I identify as having a different eye color and you insisted that that be on your driver's license, like that's going to have issues, man. It's called fraud. So, I don't know.
Right. That's why for every one of those options, I always check the "it's complicated" option for every single binary that there is.
Yeah, hair color. It's complicated. Okay, I don't know.
It's complicated.
Yeah. They also got rid of birthright citizenship. That's right. I mean, I guess it's a pretty big deal. I mean, if your parents aren't, what's the word for that again? It's like lex paternic pater something patronus. Yeah, there's something where like you get the rights of your father. What's that called? Rights of the father. Patria potestas. Yeah.
Right.
So
and this is going forward. This isn't for what's been in the past. So people aren't.
Well,
being,
in Roman law, it
not
used to be
flipping.
that way, and now it's that way again, basically. I mean, so the
Is
old
that
way.
right?
And like when people are hearing this, I think a lot of people are thinking that the people who were here on birthright that's it for them or whatever. That's not.
No, but
Is
it
rights of the
is-
father a golden bough reference? Like it's not rights of the mother because we're living in a
I heard that.
patriarchal system.
I totally got
Could be.
that, Thomas. Totally. I was thinking that when he said it.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? So like the patriarchal system has less taxation, so it makes more sense to divvy up the family, but they're returning to the patriarchal system. What do you think?
It seems fascist, and hear me out, but Hitler
World
identified more with
Federalist.
his father than with his mother, right? Because if he identified with his mother, then it kind of went against everything that he was trying to stand for. So I guess being
That sounds so Freudian right there. Just thinking of like.
Also, didn't he feel the other way because his mother, was like his mother, and his dad was like an adopted dude. So
I remember learning in school, I mean, public school, so don't hold that against me, but that Hitler got radicalized by an opera that he went and saw that was playing Wagner. And I just figured, like, what a weird like, it was the complete opposite
What a weird
pendulum
action.
thing. Like, you go to an opera and you're like, I'm going to kill a bunch of people.
You know that Curb Your Enthusiasm, where I think he's like in front of the movie theater or something.
And he's like,
David starts humming it. This guy's just like, "How dare you? How dare you?" He's like,
Shonda.
What's worse though, that the Raelians can't have their symbol, or that people can't listen to Wagner for essentially the exact same reason. One person kind of like took a big turd in a bunch of different punch bowls, and we're still dealing with the after effects.
Well, isn't it crazy that I was told by Facebook that it was a hate group? So they're like, something's attached to hate groups. That's literally the thing that they sent me. It's like,
What, Raelianism? The Raelianists?
So they don't.
They run Clitoraid, the group to protect and save women's
right, but they're looking at. They're not looking at
genital
the
mutilation.
swastika. They're looking at the swastika with the Star of David, and they're like hate symbol, automatic. And so
Jeez.
but it's it's really interesting. Like if you just look at you're like, okay, well, I called it an organized religion, but like let's be honest, it's a UFO cult from the 70s. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, but the thing is that I got that image that they gave me a strike for from Google Images on a safe search. So it's like, and it's on Wikipedia. So it's like, is Wikipedia share like what? Because
I can one up that
AI
because
malfunction.
Like you're saying that I've run into the same issue before. I've gotten multiple strikes on YouTube for taking a clip of another video I found on YouTube
Oh yeah.
and then referencing it, and not a copyright strike, like a straight up violent, dangerous, hateful
Yeah.
speech strike, where it's just, again, it's sort of like getting pulled over, and sometimes the cop smells an odor of marijuana depending on how much he likes you or not, right?
Right. No, I've had the exact same thing. I've made videos entirely, just like compilation videos of only things that I got on YouTube, and then they gave a strike for like all of them. You know what I
Hey,
mean?
you know
It's
this
like,
9-hour video you just uploaded? Well, from second 40 to second 41, you had this, and therefore, yeah.
yeah. Whoa, crazy.
So you were saying something, Raph?
Not just asking if it could be an AI malfunction that is just recognizing, oh, it seems like a swastika, and we don't like it, we just ban it outright.
Mhm.
Because I mean, generally speaking, I guess on the first layer at least, it's all AI automation. No one is watching it, right? At first,
Right.
no human.
That explanation,
There probably
of like,
guys
oh,
in India that are watching it.
it got popped in AI feels like the 21st century version of I'm just, following orders. Like
Right.
but now you're going to be making that argument against the computer, and the computer's like, I'm just following orders. Here's my list.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that Nazi robot at my door to tell me it's just following orders as it ransacs my space. It's like, wait, what? Just following orders? Just
Luckily, though,
following
you can just push it over on its side and like you're free.
Just following orders. But people get really triggered by that. Oftentimes I'm seeing people getting more triggered by the treatment of machines than humans. Sometimes, it gets weird, man. They're like,
Dude, what was that movie? Oh God, it was a movie where the guy goes to like an Elon Musk style guy's house, and he sees that he's got all of these like female robots that he's kind of
oh, you're
doing
talking about
whatever he wants with.
Ex
What is
Machina.
it?
Ex
Ex
Machina.
Machina, yeah. I always that seems like one of the most polarizing movies to me, because I see that, I'm like, I didn't see anything wrong. I didn't see any problem with like, at what point are you going to get in trouble if you go out and buy a TI-86 and you just start hitting it, right? You just bash
Right.
the
Well,
TI-86.
it's showing how mental illness is like connected, because it's the illusion of it, to the point that the guy is literally cutting his arm open to see if he himself is a robot, because he's questioning his own physicality based on what he's seen, how convincing he is relating to these machines. So that movie has like psychoanalytical implications, all the way through, and it makes sense. It's spirit from the machine, right? I mean,
I kind of want like a printed out copy of the whitehouse.gov's new website as a poster for because it looks like a movie poster. Have you seen this thing?
Yeah.
Not only that, but the very first time you visit it, you might have to like clear your cookies or opening up in a new browser. But the first time you go there, it plays a full screen video of Blue Angels and like big battleship carriers, and then Trump is like descending down a stairway. If you do like an incognito, it'll probably show it again. I was just joking. Because I saw an article, someone was freaking out because if you try and go to the Spanish translation of the White House, it doesn't exist. It directs you to a 404 page, but they were extra freaking out because in the middle of the 404 page, it just says "Go home."
America, look at this.
Yeah, look at that. You only see this once, and then it doesn't show again.
Hey, Andreas, I could actually print that for you if you want in poster size, but I have to be careful because I think if my boss sees it under tasks that have been done, he'll get pissed, But yeah, I'll see that.
Oh my God! Look at this. It's not done. It's still going.
This is the official website.
Wow, can you imagine being in North Korea right now and you go to whitehouse.gov? Oh, look at this. Oh, America, so nice. So
Can
nice.
you go to whitehouse.gov from North Korea? Are you talking about the officials in North Korea?
Oh, is it play twice? Oh my God. Okay, that's pretty sweet. That's pretty incredible. I mean, but like, so wait, the whitehouse.gov website, it looks like a movie, and the way it has the first lady on it as like starring the administration.
Right.
Donald Trump, JD Vance.
Movie poster. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
It's crazy. I think that's amazing.
Why does hers look like an 80s glamour shot versus the rest of them?
I mean, he looks like he's in that Charlie's Angels show also. You know what I mean? They all do. Like,
Dude, she had that freaking mob boss queen pin look to her at the inauguration. Man, that was freaking that, and it felt like it was a response to that Jackie O thing she had done the last inauguration. Wasn't she like in like this light blue, like baby blue outfit? Now she's just all like fucking.
I want to know, who is she sending those signals to? Like, it's clearly she's got a lot of thought that gets put into these outfits, and they mean things to people, but it's not. I mean, I don't want to speak for you guys, but it's like not messages meant for me or anyone that I maybe know necessarily. But there's absolutely a group of people that are like, "Oh my god, did she really just do that?" And to us, we're like, "Aha, she's the Hamburglar. Haha, it's Holy Mountain, spy versus spy." But there's probably someone out there that gets the actual message that was meant for.
I thought I got the message. Oh, do you mean like? How do you mean? Like, I mean, when I look at it, I just see that she's just like she's been so shit talked about so much, you know, being who she is, and she's just like this fucking, you know, like that was like the outfit itself was a statement of like, you know, she doesn't give a fuck, you know. No.
Well, I want to know now, like, what message was Hillary Clinton broadcasting when she like put on the pantsuit before she passed out in a van?
Was that
and
that thing fell.
Maoism.
That was a weird one. Remember, that was 9/11. You're talking about like on 9/11, she was at the memorial. She was at
the
Ground
frog,
Zero,
and
they're
seizure,
carrying her away, and some metal object like fell out of her pants. What the frick was that? I've rewound that 100 times. I couldn't tell what. I'm like, what is happening there?
Was this the same time she lost the shoe?
What's that?
Was this the same day she lost the shoe?
Yeah.
Was the shoe? Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
so.
but there was
they
like
grabbed her and put her into the van
that fell out of her, and it was like, you don't know what I'm talking about? Like that, it was just, you could zoom in on it and you're like, what is that object? Like, it's not just that, it's just the
Joe
fact
thinks
that
it's a mic. It could have been
carrying her into the van. It was like, it felt like there was a malfunction. Like, it felt like Ex Machina. I was like, oh shit, did the robot break? What's happening? Like, I'm not saying that that's what it is. I'm just saying, like, it had that vibe to it of like, oh, it just felt like a sci-fi movie, like a Philip K. Dick. Just like, get the robot out of here quick.
I can see
Mic
that.
drop.
Dropped.
You had a little microphone drop. I don't know what. Maybe I don't. Yeah. It was, the whole thing was just so weird. Oh man.
Kurt, are you afraid for America? What do you like Trump? Like you like the New World Order, right? You like how it's going, don't you? Don't you, Kurt?
That's a weird question.
Yeah.
It's a weird question because it's like why
Fix your cable though.
Volume.
Why? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Why would I fear for America, quote unquote? Is that the entire, Canada, Canada,
and Mexico too. Yeah. Greenland. Yeah. All of our brothers and sisters in Greenland.
Like I can't do that on behalf of other people. Like if you see what's really going on, like you are prepared. You're prepared for whatever happens. Like why would you be afraid? Like I guess I don't know if you maybe the knowledge, there's the fear. If you don't know that the Gestapo are going to come to your house, but they might, that gives you fear. But you know for sure that they're coming to your house. It's like, oh well, who cares? They're coming anyway. Why have any fear? It's that's
what I'm saying. It's like a slippery slope towards the Balami salute. Could be a salami salute in a second. It could get pretty heavy. So what do you think about if Christian right authoritarianism takes over? You know what I mean? That's kind of, isn't that the scare that this could swing back from, and everyone uses woke transgender library readings as an excuse to burn your kids at the stake?
I just hope we're not hearing the word woke in 4 years. Not because it's like we hear woke in terms of being like anti-woke more than like the actual term woke. It's like it's so
for you, maybe.
Yeah. The term has been like berated so much. I don't think anybody uses the term unironically anymore.
They do though. I don't know where you live, but I live in.
Well, you're from California. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just all matter. It's like who you're around, man. Because people will be like, oh, I want to watch that show. Is it woke? And when they say that, they're like, I'm only gonna watch it if it's woke. Do you understand? Like
the children's book that I put out, Confounding Conspiracy of Chemtrails, the chemtrails show. The first writer that I was working with on that, he kept saying the word woke as like a good thing, and this is before I was even knowledgeable of like the whole like cultural battle over this, and we worked on it for like a month or so, and then at a certain point I was long story short, I was debating like that character wouldn't really say that, and he was like, oh yeah, of course he would, they're super woke, this character's super woke. And at a certain point he realized I had absolutely no idea what that meant, and he was like, do you know what woke means? And I was like, yeah, woke means like, you believe inside job and JFK was killed by the CIA, because it's the opposite of being asleep, a sheeple. Being woke is like paying attention. And at that conversation, they just never responded to any email or anything after that. And I realized way too late, I was like, oh, woke was a whole different thing. It meant, and so in that case, yeah, they very much were using it the same way you're describing, David, as like a pre-qualifier. Like it has to be this woke thing, otherwise it's the enemy.
Right. And it has very little in common with its actual traditional root meaning, which I'm sure we've discussed on this show before and where that came from, But like, it's literally to be awake, and it had a lot to do with just like the cops and like just like government authority in general, just like this. Or do you see the corruption? Do you see the corruption? And that's woke. It's just, you're awake to it. But what's weird is what trips me out is like all these people just insult people. Oh, conspiracy theorists. They're jumping at every conspiracy that fits in their confirmation bias. So if something's in line, and like that was the thing with like Elon Musk's gesture, is like it's really a litmus test, because you can see that whatever, like if it was AOC that did that, my heart goes out to you, like they would be defending it to no end. It's just like the classic example of like, whatever your orientation is, this is how you're going to react to it. Like it has nothing to do, like this is whatever it is that's in front of you. Like I would like it if we got to the place where we transcend that, where it's just things aren't so polarized in that way that it's just like whatever it is that you think of this person, that's what you're going to see. It's like the thing that just came out with the like Trump made a statement about the voting counting. So just all these people who just insulted the conspiracy theorists became immediate conspiracy theorists that he just confessed to rigging the election. And you're like, dude, like if anybody who had seen Musk on Joe Rogan about it after the fact, and even beyond Joe Rogan, like just Musk's whole thing. There's articles on that he was tallying the votes in another computer, like they're like holding it in check. The whole thing was for election integrity. That was where he was coming from. That was at least how he emphasized what it was that he was doing. The same thing happened in Iowa with Bernie Sanders during the primary. Do you remember Shadow App? I've joked about this because Pete Buttigieg looked like a groundhog, and this happened right after Groundhog Day, and the app was called Shadow App, where for the first time ever they were using an app to tally the votes for the primary of the first of the 3 caucus states. Bernie was the only candidate to win all 3 caucus states in history, by the way. But anyway, his team tallied the votes themselves, just like Elon Musk did this election. And when they read the official results from the DNC, they said that Pete Buttigieg was somehow way in the lead, despite nothing predicting that. No, it's just out of the blue. And then Bernie's team was like, wait, there's major discrepancies here. We've been keeping track of the votes ourselves using our own technology. And what did they do? They changed it. The DNC said, oh shit, we were wrong, sorry. And then they made it to Bernie was in the lead by a landslide, like we should have known anyway. But then they made right after that, before even the next 2 caucus states, they made a new rule, because the DNC could do this. And Debbie Wasserman-Schultz testified that they were allowed to do this, that they just said no longer can campaign teams keep their own tally. So you can no longer do that in the primaries. But they did that with this election, and Elon Musk did it. So that's what Trump is referring to. Also, that he was in Pennsylvania for a month. Elon Musk was in Pennsylvania for a month, trying to get, and he was saying he was influential there. He's very popular in Pennsylvania. Some people like him, some people didn't. That's the truth. But whatever, the point is that he didn't say that at all. But people wanted to hear that so bad that he was confessing to them rigging the election that they didn't know what vote counting computer meant. They thought that he was literally like that it was just Skynet or whatever it is.
Elon Musk is like living at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know what the whole deal is, but it's staying at like one of the very expensive rental bungalows, and theoretically is paying rent to stay there or something crazy as
Just
well.
because
I
you're
don't know.
mentioning Musk, I want to ask you guys. I know you already mentioned this with the Elon Musk gamer situation, but I'm almost wondering, why is this going so big? Is this like, because one thing I heard is that Trump wants to keep Elon close and then make him drop or something? Like because even on the most basic level, if someone even has to lie about how high they are up on a video game ladder rank, how much can you trust the guy to do anything? Or if he has such a fragile ego or whatever else, like it's the ultimate disqualification from everything. And why would they even popularize that?
Elongate's a funny
also,
word.
I don't know if you saw this week, but Grimes came out and actually defended Elon and said that she personally saw him make some of these achievements in these online games. So this is
I'm
getting
sure
pretty
she has.
serious.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
definitely pays people to play for him. Go ahead, Kurt. Sorry.
I think people's priorities are wildly out of order. It's I really, I mean, if Elon is a dishonest person, yes, that's very important information. But like, I don't care what level he is on a video game. Like, it's some of the
But
most
if he's
irrelevant.
that petty, he should not be in that government office. Very simple. I mean, this is for so many people, but to make it so public that he's so petty or whatever the issue is, how it's portrayed, I mean, that's the ultimate disqualification from anything.
Oh yeah, if you cannot handle your own ego, yeah, fragile ego, it's very bad. It's very bad for people in any position of authority. Naturally, there are, no matter what kind of society we have, even in an anarchist society, we will have somewhat lower diluted positions of authority, but they'll still be positions of authority nonetheless. So it's like, yeah, character does factually matter of these people. I'm not saying what to do. I think a lot of people use elections to just try to control everything, and that's where that's like the opposite of good karma. Like, if you're just trying to control everything, like, you're not going to be a very happy person, and it's going to be like, you might end up doing it, and then you like, oh shit, like, playing God is actually hard and corrosive. It's like, you got all the infinity stones, but then you blast your face because no one can handle like the actual power. So it's like, I don't know. I saw a meme that the guy that was trying to prolong his life he was a transhumanist. I don't know if it's true, but apparently he stopped taking the substance because he's like, oh shit, this is reducing my lifespan.
Oh, Andreas, did you interview this guy? Like somebody you'd hang out with.
No, I haven't interviewed him, but I know he's talking about Brian Johnson. Yeah, he stopped taking some sort of I forgot, some sort of a supplement that ended up not having benefit to him and could actually be using more energy that would be depleting his telomeres and everything. So he stopped taking one of his 1,000 substances, right? He stopped taking one of them.
Supplements, or is it okay? Whatever.
Oh, I can look it up. But what he quit?
Was it the substance? Was he doubled? Did he emerge?
What's his name? Look up his
Brian
name.
Johnson wants to live forever. He stops taking this medicine. The 47-year-old millionaire. He's taking immunosuppressant rapamycin. Yeah, so he stopped taking rapamycin. Okay.
Dude, that's so skexy, man. I'm too skexy for the substance.
I mean, basically, he just tells people everything he does. So that way, if anyone wanted to use his research, he contributes it for free to anyone to do. And he's making himself the test. So
if you're taking 1,000 pills a day, why don't they just make that one pill? Why isn't that just the new Centrum Silver, like Centrum Platinum?
I think
it'd be a pretty big pill. Quite a big pill to swallow.
I mean, they can just turn it into like one of those new ketamine FDA injectors, Johnson & Johnson depression cures.
Well, different substances require you take them at different times and in different amounts and different, measuring it out.
We got time release for that, David.
Okay.
Remember, give the rectal suppository to the elephant in Dumbo, Operation Dumbo Drop. So when Elon Musk tries to pretend to be the everyman gamer, it reminds me of Al Gore pretending to be a hunter and talking about how the size and points of deer that he shot.
Dude,
It's just a weird thing to
You
do.
What
saw
about
Tucker
RFK?
on Rogan talking about the bow hunting, right? You saw that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that was hard to watch, man. That was really tough. Like,
But
The
Elon
idea
is,
that they're
I don't
real
think he-
hunters is just whatever. Sorry.
I'm not.
but Elon's not talking about an
That's
everyman gamer. An everyman gamer is not in the top 10 of Paths of Exile or anything. And I think that there actually is something more important to this that my rumble just stopped. But I think that there's
Weird.
something important to this because if you think about it, Elon Musk is at the forefront of I would argue military weaponry and technology, like all the fun things and Starlink and Neuralink and going to, but almost all technology essentially resolves down to warfare. And I think that him sort of flexing that way is like the future of warfare would essentially be done through drones and programming. Even when I was in the Air Force like 20 years ago, a large portion of that combat was just some dude behind a computer nerd behind a screen, just like he knows when to push the button at the right time, and that's his entire job. And there's other people that they know when to push their right buttons at the right time. So to a certain point, almost like an Ender's Game, Elon Musk is flexing. He's like, I can take over any nation. This was the same way that North Korea flexed their power, or South Korea flexed their power over North Korea. They were like, look at how many StarCraft champions we have in this country, and their APMs were astronomical. There was a Discovery documentary in the late 90s that showed that a typical StarCraft player in South Korea at the professional levels, they had such a high APM, I mean, actions per minute. It was so astronomically high that they were like 4xing any other nationality in the rest of the world in terms of how many decisions that they were making and how many times they were hitting buttons or clicking. It was more than you could, even if you knew exactly what you had to do. They had conditioned themselves. And it's almost as if we're approaching this reality where if you can win in a virtualized simulation, that basically means you can win in real life. And it doesn't work now in the way that our current world works. Like if Donald Trump can school you in Mortal Kombat, right? If Melania can absolutely fatality you every single time with Kung Lao, that doesn't mean she can actually beat you in a real fight. But Elon Musk winning in Paths of Exile maybe does mean that he has the capability by himself to completely dismantle your country with military means. Because I don't think it's just a silly video game. I think this is legitimately him flexing and saying like, I can think so fast and so strategically that I can basically overcome any military force you put in front of me. And maybe that's why, just to peg onto that, this might be why he's at Mar-a-Lago. Maybe he's there to sort of train Barron. Barron's going to be the new one that can take into place. And imagine the political capital that Barron gets just by inheriting it through the Golden Bough, but also he's going to be trained by Elon Musk to be the best player at Paths of Exile, which means that he could become the next world leader.
Well, I agree. I've been saying for a long time that Barron, he could very well be the last president, just for synchronicity. Like just like you have Barron Trump's adventures underground, the last president. It's just that everything feels like he's the future, like it's crazy. Look how tall that kid is, man. I'm being Captain Obvious, but that kid is tall, man. How tall is he? Is he 7'1" or something? What's happening?
Something like that. Yeah.
7'1".
If David says someone's tall, they're tall.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
true.
If I
That's
go
crazy. I was just seeing that.
Somebody, it trips me out, man. I'm like, damn, dude.
But Kurt, you have thoughts on Elon Musk cheating? Oh, go ahead.
No.
Well, with your cable, fix it. Because come on, I can't hear that.
On Elon cheating at video games?
Yeah, or masterminding with gaming, or like what? I mean, maybe like okay, if you're cheating with video games, doesn't that mean that like everyone uses games, everyone likes to play games some different kinds of ways? He likes to play games by cheating. He wants to like manipulate in creator mode of Minecraft or something like that. So maybe it's a good thing or something that he's trying to cheat.
I don't want to no, I just don't want to I don't want to be flippant or like dismissive. I just think I think our societal set of values and norms is just so it's very cheeks. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Maybe he should be cheating it.
Somebody in the comments says PayPal has entered the chat. I don't know.
No, it's, I no, like what is important? It's such a simple question. Like, what is important in society? Is it? And I think if you ask yourself that question enough, it's like the more a lot of things just seem hollow and shallow, and it's like, who cares at the end of the day if you're good at a made up video game? That's the thing. Someone made up the video game. It didn't just exist on the planet. It's not like he's going out and strangling a wolf with his bare hands. No, he's being good at something that came from someone's imagination.
Well, it's not about whether or not because he's not obviously that great at video games. He's only okay at video games because he's been using other people to get his character up high enough to defeat these like highly difficult characters. He goes and gets characters because in China people will farm like you're talking about these characters, so he has a high enough character that he can defeat anything. Because if you have a super high character, you can do anything in the game. Yeah, it's super easy once you unlock. It's a pay to win system, but like that's not the point. The point is he wants people to think that he's really good at games. And is it because he wants people to think that he's the everyman, or is it because he wants people to think that, like Thomas is saying, that he's some sort of mastermind wizard genius that can understand the fabric of reality because he's really good at playing RPGs and Quake?
And it's not just, again, in that analogy of like the South Korean StarCraft players, but that Discovery documentary was actually showing they hooked up like a freaking not an EKG, but they put one of those like God helmets on them and analyzed their actual brainwaves, and they could see that some of the actions that these Korean players, they were clicking it before they were even able to register the thought leaving their brain to tell the antidote. So at a certain point, you integrate all this information and strategy to a point where it's almost unconscious. Like you're doing it the same way that you would breathe or have a visceral reaction to anything. Like it almost embedded itself in like your reptilian brain. And if you can do that when it comes to technology, that would be this like next step. This is like the preemptive step towards transhumanism.
That's Rosie Perez and White Men Can't Jump on Jeopardy. No, I was just like, okay, just like I'm thinking of that Upright Citizens Brigade where the guys like doing the they're learning to fly. Like they make pilots, like in training, like do these I can't think right now, the where they recreate like simulation of flying, and the guy keeps freaking out every time, and they're like, okay, the plane's going down, how are you going to talk to the people in the back, like how are you going to handle this, and he just keeps on freaking out every time, like he can't get it, and they're like, sometimes it helps to pray, so he just starts hailing Satan, and he just freaks everyone. But that's the thing. But I had an argument one time with this like 20 years ago with this Israeli guy at Andreas knows at Pergolesi, where he showed up in his full uniform, was like to get a cup of coffee, and it was just like one of those things where somebody just wants, they're like, okay. But I was talking to the guy, and I told him that I had at the time I'd recently watched somebody giving it sharing their story of when they joined the military and how they pitched drone operation to him, and like how it was like, he's like, you just play video games, but it's like James Bond, when you go to work, you got that, like when they recruited him, and that he expressed it. He was like, I got freaking PTSD from operating drones for years, to the point where I didn't like it. And he was describing his trip, and it's like, so context, like to imagine like that you're going to work every day and you're operating these things, and then you start to get indications, you start to see in footage of what it is that you're actually doing in certain cases. So you're like women and children, you're killing women and children, like in certain cases, and you see it, and you're like, and it trips you out, like how that's like. And this guy was arguing with me, he's like, you can't like, because he's like, you only get that from combat, like you can't get traumatized from a video game. And I'm like, it's not a video game. That's the trip. Like you treat it like you're playing a video game, and like even a lot of the video games like seem like they're just like, they're directed towards getting people to, they're like, they are recruitment themselves, you know what I mean? Like to direct them, not just for combat, but for the future of warfare, which is very like technological. Like, my God. So I don't
But
know.
see, that's actually one part where the military, I think, can overcome that. When they can overcome some of that aspect of like true, because if you're out on the front line, you're physically like killing people. Yeah, you might get PTSD from that because you're doing the whole motion. But I wasn't kidding when I said there's just one guy. His entire job is just to know when to push a button at the right time. He doesn't necessarily even know that there's a person there, if the button is going to drop a crate of supplies, if it's going to fire a missile. It's just that he knows when to push the right button at the right time. There was even a joke in the drone department I was in, and it was I always butcher it. It goes something like this: a guy pushes a button, and you just see a big explosion on the screen, and someone's like, "Oh wow, was that a military compound or was that the hospital?" And he's like, "I don't know. I'm just a guy that pushes the button." But like that level of
Just follow an order.
compartmentalization, it really does work.
Yeah, totally. And that was the thing. I would talk about this, but like in World War One, it was very hard to get those soldiers to shoot other people. They had to do so much, like they had to figure out how to condition people, how to program people to the point where they could actually not just like fire to the side or fire overhead to like shoot another person.
But in that context, right? If we're talking in World War One, even I think in Vietnam too, which is like part of the like Stargate program, whatever. But just imagine in this theoretical situation that one guy holds the rifle and puts the target in the sights, but there's another guy behind him that's separated in a little tent, cordoned off, and he just has like a little push button, like an old school camera, and someone's just like, all right, push the button, bam. So now it's almost like a firing squad. Everyone shoots, and like, one person has the blank or who no one knows. It's like if you can remove yourself from being personally responsible from this action, then it's like a cheat code in our brain. And I think that that's something that, again, video games, they can do very, very well. They can make it so that another person pushes the button.
It wasn't the Stanford experiment. What was the experiment where they had the people in one room push the button for the people in the other room and increase the frequency of like, and they just,
Milford experiment.
Thank you. Yeah. It's very, very relatable to that. Yeah. But this isn't an experiment. Or maybe it is. It's just got ramifications.
Yeah. So does it look to you like everything's going well? Because around the world also, governments are switching really fast. In Europe right now, Austria and Germany are going to new houses. Italy's changed. I mean, the whole thing is shifting. So it's like everyone's going to be on the same side about an issue. At least this is sort of the 90s where they're all Western powers versus the Soviet bloc kind of a thing. Like, what do you see? Do you feel like a
climate change?
You saw that little algorithm, didn't you?
We need like stock tickers and candlestick patterns for opinions about things that are happening in the world. Because right now it's almost like this morning is Elon Nazi or not. That's kind of like one of those things, but it's not a binary, it's a spectrum, right? He's on a spectrum of Nazi. It's not just one or the other.
Well, there's the woke left and the woke right now, right?
For that.
James Lindsay talks about the woke left versus the woke right. I don't exactly know what the woke right is yet. I'm pretty sure that they don't know about themselves, but I don't know. The woke right slightly different than the Christian right, because the woke right might be the authoritarian, diverse Starship Troopers right that we all the inclusive right.
Whatever the case, Elon is very much guilty of synchronicity because apparently his father admitted that he was named after that book from Werner von Braun about the character Elon, who was a ruler on Mars, like the sci-fi book. But like that's like Werner von Braun. So, and then that's like, Nazis and rockets and all of that. Like, so, is he guilty? It's like the judge in Polanski's case saying, I see all your movies take place in water. Is this a coincidence? Like they have some water connection. What is it with you in water? It seems really, really weird. What's your deal? It's like,
thank you, Mythical Ass. That's awesome. Everybody get your memberships.
So is Elon Musk guilty of synchronicity?
I mean, that's the other thing is it's like that book Generation Pi or Babylon by Victor Pelevin, where his name is Baby Lenin, so it's Babylon, and he ends up like in charge of the Russian mafia. But like this is in charge of the fallen Americas instead of the fallen Russias, And if he's taking over from the center of the empire, then that's a good position. But also, he's on Trump's property with him all the time. So doesn't that mean he's like being watched by Trump all the time? So it's more
It's
like
weird. He's okay. So hold on. Just the name Elon,
and Melania.
right? So he literally is like the scent of a tree, right? It's Elon Musk, right? It's tree scent. But like
Tree of life, though.
that right. So that book from, am I correct?
Elion.
That was a book from Werner von Braun. His dad said that's who he named him after. So it's like, just to be clear, the Nazi had his character that's the ruler of Mars, the planet of war. He named tree, like in Hebrew, like.
But also Elon, right? Because like Elon, we're like maybe we're looking at it,
and we know
Elon.
TikTok, all of that controversy, like this is in the actual, like the legislature, like the Supreme Court in their whole decision-making process had everything to do with, not just Israel, Palestine, but things of that nature, but particularly that, like that it didn't have anything, it seems, in their communications around it to have to do with Chinese spyware. Like there's so much Chinese spyware and everything, including Zuckerberg selling our data information to China, and that doesn't seem to be a problem. So it's kind of trippy that, like, the way that we're treating these issues like as though they have something to do with something, when really there's this whole other thing going on. Like that's like it's strange. Like how does, I don't know. Do you get where I'm going with that? I'm sorry, I'm being a little vague, but it's weird.
I don't want to just one more correction on this one, David, but it's a gross oversimplification. It just called Werner von Braun a Nazi. It pigeonholes him into one thing.
Sure.
If you want to be more specific, he was in the SS. He wasn't just any Nazi. He was SS Nazi. So at least there you go.
Totally. Yeah. And then yeah, okay. It's interesting because it's like NASA itself, that's also Hebrew for to deceive, so it's like every element of this is just the sex and rock.
And also, are we talking Nazi von Braun? Or are we talking Disney von Braun? Because those are two different von Braun.
I disagree. That's what I was trying to say. I think it's the same von Braun. You have to remember the same von Braun. What's up, Ricky? Ricky Kaka. Yes, the Starship Troopers all right, but implied to be secretly the leftist posing as the right to make the boogeyman real tickety. The leftist posing is the right to make the boogeyman real. Do you think that's
I'm not a Q guy. You guys are hip to Q. Like I just remember, like all the TikTok things, even from the beginning with TikTok, I'm like, isn't that what Q always says? Is TikTok? I know they spell it differently, but I'm like, is this just happening right now? It's like, are the Q people just like tripping the hell out over what's happening right now? Because it seems like that's exactly the freaking thing.
Good call. That's exactly the sync that has to be explored. So remember, like, did we talk about this before? Like what QAnon said, like, was basically everyone needed to get everything ready and stay inside because there's going to be some sort of a war. And so most people should stay at home. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, like within a year after that. That was basically the preparation. Wasn't like for a physical conflict necessarily, but there's a war going on where you're supposed to stay at home.
Quote, unquote.
You're not allowed to leave your homes. You're not supposed to fly across the seas. Everyone's supposed to wear a mask, which is pretty great if you're in Washington, D.C. or, some major city. I mean, there might have been more to that from the Q perspective for sure. And then you got January 6th and all that. We said earlier the idea that maybe with the military not behind Biden, that Trump's in charge, right? Because there was that whole thing where when Biden took office, like there wasn't music. It wasn't the same as when, and then from there, when Trump has taken office, there's all these military sigils behind him. So maybe, the idea that there's been a continual, Trump's been behind the plans all along. Yeah, what? Nice.
And Obama, like what is the deal with freaking, like it feels like there's layers to that, because that was the whole thing. Like I was mentioning that press correspondence dinner where they played the Lion King. He says, not only do I have my birth certificate, but I have footage of my birth. And then they showed the footage from the Lion King and the way that all the symbolism that's embedded in that. And thank you, there you go, right there. What is this conversation that's happening right here? What is this? And then Kamala looking back at them like they can hear, I don't know.
So
man.
on one hand, I can imagine it like, hey, you're under watch and we're like making you and you have to look good. On the other hand, and like that's how he looks nervously. But on the other hand, I can totally imagine Trump saying something kind of funny, and nice. And he's trying, because he's like, his big fault is he needs to be loved, so he's like trying to get the people who hate him still to laugh with him.
Yeah,
or something.
I mean, this is how he's laughing at literally Hitler, who he just said was basically Hitler. Like, it's so crazy.
What would you have said to him? Could you imagine that we'd be sitting here 8 years ago? Could you imagine?
Right. It doesn't take.
What was the quote? Was this a Larry King quote where he was like, "Hey, do you mind sitting back a little bit? Your breath is really bad."
Oy vey.
Do you not remember that quote? That was like that's my all-time favorite Donald Trump quote.
Is that what he said?
I do remember him saying that. Yeah. That totally happened. I remember that clip.
Larry King said that to Donald Trump. Or Donald Trump said
Donald Trump said that to Larry King.
Is out of control. You're talking years. You're talking about like the late 90s or early 2000s or something, right?
Yeah, it was pre-President Trump for sure.
Yeah, way back when. Yeah, and that whole interview with Larry King is fucking out of control. Actually, if you watch all of that now in retrospect, it's like crazy. Yeah.
Donka, Jack McLeod, and Rika Kaka. What do you think about them, Kurt? You've got thoughts? Get thoughts about them sitting together and loving each other, and like this whole thing where they act like it's a war? Do you think it's all a show? Is it all just?
There's a dimension where that's true, of course. Like a lot of these people like that fight with each other, like they do shake hands behind closed doors, not just in public. Like there isn't it definitely does happen, but I still believe the rumors that went around that Hillary had like an actual like physical meltdown when she lost in 2016. I believe that's true. I think it's a combination of a weird like buddy system with severe megalomania. It definitely happens, but I don't know.
You don't think it's like you think that for the most part though? What do you think? It's mostly psychic drama to freak people out and make them turn against each other more than they're actually experiencing it politically. Like, I mean, this show seemed everyone's kind of went through the motions really peaceably this time.
Like, well, yeah, I mean, all right, so this election, like, there was I call it a craving for order, and so like I think everyone just collectively agreed, like, okay, we just like things are too crazy. We need to like settle on something, whatever that something is. And so like I think even Democrats recognize that. Biden was saying like, oh, there's a new oligarchy. Like there's been an oligarchy at least for the past 70, 80 years. It's like it's nothing new, and the Democratic Party had its own oligarchy. It's nothing is going to change in that sense. But yeah, as far I'm trying to get back to the point. I think I'm starting to stray. But
I liked it though, because Bernie Sanders said that earlier, right? Bernie Sanders, when I was talking about oligarchy, many people didn't understand what I meant. Well, that's changed. When the three wealthiest men in America sit behind Trump at his inauguration, he's talking about Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and then Elon Musk.
But these are all people that could have been, at least Marky Mark. Marky Mark was likely a Democrat in his past.
Dude, if you call him that, dude, he will punch you in the face. It is Mark Wahlberg, dude. Careful.
Everyone understands the billionaire class now control our government. Right.
It's always been that way. Like what think of any like at least celebrity millionaire who's richer than 95% of the population. What was their political party traditionally over the past 30 years? It's like the oligarchy has not always been right wing, by any means. It's just different flavors of oligarchy. So as far as what could be good about Trump president, it's like I think realistically when there's just mass confusion, obviously people look for someone to do actions. And so me personally, I couldn't care less about, doing things like watching the inauguration, although, watching them sign the executive orders was kind of cool in a way. Not because executive orders are good, always good, but it was just like, oh, there's a certain level of transparency here. This is what being done. I got elected to do things. So it's in some way there are positive takeaways with that, but I don't care what he says. I don't care what Trump says. I don't care what any political party says. I know, government laws are made up of words that people have to write down, but at some level those are more important than all of the bells and whistles behind everything else about politics. And so like the whole Society of the Spectacle, great book. You guys should read it. It's no, that was one of my favorite books. It's like the whole spectacle. I think it's just kind of there. It's like you can't even criticize leaders for participating in a spectacle because it's like some of it arose naturally. Like if people didn't have the spectacle, it's like they'd be too stupid to do anything. So yeah, it's hard to have an ideology when things are just so crazy. Like people have to understand just how crazy things are. So like Trump, he signed the executive orders. It was partially spectacle, but he was doing things, and then
you broke your cable, bro.
Yeah, sorry. Throwing your pens to adoring fans has nothing to do with getting things done. That just makes people happy within the spectator sport of politics. And so it's like I do think the dimension of politics that is just a spectacle and it seems like a sport, that is depressing, and it's something I think we need to grow up about. We have a very infantilized society in certain regards, but that isn't to call something specific. It's not something specifically bad about the Trump presidency. That's something bad about the entire system in general. So we can have, I guess, some sort of functional democracy, but at some level, people need to be adults. And so I don't know, maybe the whole gender thing, it could be a good thing in that aspect, but there's also the authority of symbolism, which also has its downsides. So I don't know.
Could you elaborate on that?
All right. So, what do we call anything? I'm starting to sound schizophrenic, but what do we call anything? Yeah. Why do we sign the word tree to a tree? It's like, well, we've all wanted some level of communication to communicate ideas and penetrate your brain with different things. So like if nobody agrees on what a gender even is, if there are infinite genders, it doesn't mean anything to have
right. So are you arguing, correct me if I'm wrong, but that if you question something that's so fundamental and so basic that if you get people to accept, because this is kind of the basis of 1984, right, of the 2 + 2 = 5 thing. If you get people to accept something that they know consciously is inaccurate, but you're going to assert it anyway, then once you've opened that door, it's just like a landslide of all this. It's like a slippery slope into all these other avenues.
It depends on what your definition of is.
Right. Of ISIS.
Yeah. No, that is a great point. It's I guess there's a possibility that's true, but is that good or bad? But what is, I guess, the differentiation between things that we've assigned value and things that have intrinsic value? Sometimes we have no objective way of telling the difference, and that's where the difficulty arises from. So it's like, do we take the time to define the tree, or not even call it a tree at all?
Yeah, and then, totally. It's a really important point, because I'm with J.K. Rowling on this, where I'm just like, people should have every right to express themselves however they want to, and there's a point that gets crossed. There's like a threshold that gets crossed where people take it so far that now they're imposing how you have to, not just, it even goes beyond not insulting somebody. It's like, you have to say that this is true about me, or else. And the or else part is the scary part, where it's like, well, to what extent are we going here? Same thing that what's his name, the guy in Canada, Jordan Peterson. Like he was like when he at the beginning of like his first initial, like he went into all kinds of other areas, but like the first thing was like, I'll call you what you want me to call you. Like that's fine, but don't tell me it's a law. And at which point, to what end, where are we going with this? Because it is against a can of worms, and people are treating it that because slippery slope is a fallacy, that it doesn't matter. But there's different types of fallacies. There's the may or may not, right? So you're like, as this doing this may lead to this and this and this, and people can just deny, and that can go back and forth. But if you're, you got.
But I would argue in that whenever you bring up like a fallacy, like these fallacies, when it comes to that, fallacy doesn't mean wrong necessarily. It just means that in a rhetorical context, these are the things that work and don't work. These are like the special combos in Mortal Kombat, right? Like knowing all the different combos for that character is like knowing all the logical fallacies. And just because you know them isn't like, oh, I can't use that because it's a fallacy. It means that you have to know your audience and you have to know which fallacies will work on which audiences at the right time.
Certain fallacies are just false. That's just the way it is. And then a lot of fallacies, though, you're absolutely right, are like it may or may not be so. So correlation doesn't equal causation. People will say that, and you're like, yeah, it might. Like that's the whole point. It means it's a signal that maybe you should pay attention to this because these things appear to be correlating. Are they?
Ad hominem is a great one. Ad hominem, like it's one of the most obvious. It's like baby's first, logical fallacy that everyone comes up with. But also sometimes you can drop it at the right time and it makes all the difference in a rhetorical speech. But also sometimes it's accurate. It proves the entire point. Well, of course, a Nazi would say that. Right, like, but that can be true and also be as potent as it is true.
Right. This is a missed opportunity not to have him show up with the village people, right? So this is the thing. I saw you responded to this, Andreas. So Guantanamo Bay was built on the YMCA.
Yeah,
it was YMCA that was there. Like, as a matter of fact, like I feel like vaguely
Guantanamo YMCA.
You told me that a long time ago, but now I'm just like, oh my god, dude! If that's like intentional, that's crazy.
I remember what everything was like there.
I have a pointed question. I'm sorry. I brought this up in one of our chats. So the YMCA, it's been, kind of used as a gay song. And so in the music video for the YMCA, I mean, the whole thing looks very gay. Nothing wrong with that. But
2 of the bandmates died of AIDS. That's how gay they are. Right?
No, it's like in mainstream society, there was a music video that had like a leather daddy in it, and it's like, well, like how? And so it's used on Trump's. It was like one of the headlining songs on Trump's campaign trail, and I guess they're performing the song too. What do you guys make out of the leather daddy symbolism in the YMCA video?
Yeah, how gay are the Republicans? The gayest, right?
And there's nothing fucking wrong with that. It's like this is such a thing, man. It's like by the way, Amelia came out with her new album called Amelia has a new album out called Amelioration of a Dream. It's Nahadar if you want to look it up. And the first song is called What Did They Do to the Rainbow? And it's about the rainbow basically being hijacked, where it starts out with a sample from one of the founders of the Rainbow family, and then it's articulating like what the rainbow was made to represent in terms of unity, inclusivity, and the way that the rainbow now with that triangle on the side has just become like we're attributing. I've said this before, I'll say it again because it's a really important point, is that we're attributing these different groups, and we're basically making something that was an all-inclusive symbol into a symbol of exclusivity. And what the village people represent, and that whole gay movement and Harvey Milk and all of that stuff is, say what you will, you can have your criticisms or whatever you want to have, but the truth is that it was all about inclusivity, is people wanting to be included, and now it's turned into this really weird, like, divisive thing, and it's like it's the antithesis of what that rainbow was made to represent. So and also, by the way, that album, the name of it, An Amelioration of a Dream, is a reference to a ritual that was done that's almost Kabbalistic. It's a Jewish ritual where if you have a bad dream, they would do this next thing. We have 3 people where they basically invoke to shift your relationship or your perception of that dream to make a good dream into to make a bad dream into a good dream. So they'll literally repeat 7 times, I've seen a good dream, I've seen a good dream. And so speaking to like that, you can take a sad song and make it better, basically.
So
but
this
also
is psychic driving is what you're talking about.
Right. And also just relating to this this idea that the redemption is not possible. Like everyone loves Star Wars, right? What the hell? Is it like Disney taking over Star Wars is like coincides with us not being able to comprehend what the main message of Star Wars was? The main message of Star Wars was all about redemption. It's all about Darth Vader, like that by his merits. And this is what I'm sorry to be on this kind of like soapbox rant here, but it's like this is what we've lost touch with is merit. Like that's why like the whole equity thing is like all about revenge. It's like, oh, these people were wronged by these people, even your ancestors, and now we're going to compensate with like negativity. And it's like, what happened here? Like where, and like the fact that this is all like, I'm repeating this, but Martin Luther King Day, man. Like this is the whole fucking point. Like these basic things, like it's so basic, like equality, like we're equal, right? We're in the eyes of, and you know, the eyes of the beholder.
On the gay thing too, just one of my all-time favorite, another political quote. This was Roger Stone talking about Roy Cohn, and he said, Roy Cohn is not gay. He's a man that likes to have sex with men. Right. And I know that it sounds like it's just like this weird circular logic, but truly it was to Roy Cohn, it was like, how could I be gay? I'm so powerful. Like there's I can't be gay because in that premise, within the context of Roy Cohn talking about this, it was almost as being like effeminate or passive or having all of these qualities that you would attribute to gay. He's like, I'm not that. I just like to have sex with other dudes. That doesn't make me gay.
Right.
Nobody clipped that.
Visualizing that film The Apprentice and how they portrayed that in that. Like that was a great recommendation, by the way. I wouldn't have watched it if you hadn't said, no, actually, David, you should check it out.
The Apprentice, right?
Yeah. So, but his depiction in there, because you're right, because there's a whole ideological thing attached to it even then, but it wasn't a bad thing at a time.
No, like he liked to surround himself with like youthful of vigor and power and just like just aesthetic, pleasingly aesthetic principle.
Very, very Roman, right? I mean, isn't that the thing?
Very Roman. Very a little bit of Greek in there too, maybe. Yeah.
yeah. Crazy.
Man, I don't know. The whole thing with the Trump with the way
I think there is a direct line between Roy Cohn and Trump in the YMCA. Like Trump would not be playing YMCA if he hadn't had Roy Cohn as his mentor. There's no way.
Well, do you think that it's like a QAnon thing with Trump and the YMCA that he's playing the song because that was where young men went to hook up? In other words, they were preying upon young kids and men that were at the YMCA's, and so
filtering.
Yeah, right. So maybe there's some sort of a like the witch hunt music or something, because they're saying like this song is about I don't know, or maybe not. What's his deal with the YMCA? Why is he like that song?
It's about inclusivity, and like that's the thing is saying come aboard. Like that's the difference, and that's what people are like. This is my experience over the years, and I am not alone in this. I feel like I was pushed out from the Democrats. Like they didn't want me. And it was mostly due to being honest. So like just saying things that I actually saw, and they're like, "Oh, we can't have that." And it's like, really? Because this is what it looks like. Like so, and a lot of people have experienced this. All the Bernie people, so many Bernie people. And then what happened to Bernie? He got pushed out of it. Like he was always independent, right? But he ran with the Democrats, like as an independent. It's so weird. But they just used him, and then they screwed him over. That's what happened to Tulsi. Tulsi's the epitome of that. Like she was a chair of the DNC. She was like vice chair of the DNC, and then it's like she witnessed what they did to Bernie, and she's just like, I can't be a part of this. Like they pushed her out. Like she didn't change. She stayed true to whatever she was in the first place, which at one time was acceptable, and then it became unacceptable. So the thing with the village people and everything they represented was like, you're all welcome. Like we're all welcome. We're all part of the same people. Like it was very in line with what the Rainbow family was, what it still is, but like what that philosophy is, like it's gone, like from a lot of these, the ideology is like took the most important aspect of the thing, pushed it out. And the thing about MAGA is that it's very welcoming. So it's like, oh, you know, like there's a meme where it's like you got like a line, and there's like the guy who's like, actually, I think both sides have some good points, and then they get pushed by the left, not the right. They get pushed out, and then then they get caught by the right, and then they're like, oh, thanks, man, that was really, you know. And they were like, why are you siding with the enemy? It's like that, dude. It's a thing. It's happening.
Is YMCA really a song for everybody, or is it? I mean, it's a gay song.
Anyone
right?
can come to the YMCA.
I guess people like it at roller skate rinks.
Any weight, any ethnicity, anything, you know.
Well,
Yeah, but
not
that
any
song
gender
is-
though. It's right in the name.
Clearly, it's a very gay song.
YMCA.
Yeah, young men.
Well,
young
and
men. It's like,
Christian, right?
True.
well, they
Isn't
don't
that
say you're
the-
Christian.
The C is
They just
Christian.
say-
You got to be a male and Christian and gay.
I don't know if you actually Christian.
You got to be Christian. Come on, what are you
Do you
talking
think?
about?
Do you have to
Young
be
Men
Christian to go to the
Christian
Christian?
Association. Was that not the
What's
name of
that?
it?
It is the name of the organization, but do you have to be Christian to be a
You
member?
don't have to be Christian. to
No,
be a
you don't
member.
have. No, just like you can be any gender too, and you can also join the
it's-
YMCA.
It's Jewish. It's Yimcha. That's probably what it really is. Something like that. But no, maybe like started to put Christian values into people. So maybe you could just be Christian curious.
All the way in.
Yeah.
Good one.
I don't know. Peter Thiel is you know, the reason I would think, because most of the people he's proud to be gay now? Is that a thing? Yeah. Well, everyone knew he was gay, and he was annoyed at first because he didn't want to be shown publicly to be gay, right? He was keeping that private for a long time, and then Gawker magazine like outed him, and he destroyed Gawker magazine for destroying not his privacy but Holgan's privacy. He took it on himself to help somebody else. Good for him.
I guess the point I was making wasn't so much about the YMCA itself necessarily, but what energetically, when that song is played at like every Trump rally, the way it translates for people is one of like, it's like jump on in. You know, it's the water's fine, so to speak. You know.
Let me make sure my save search is on. But I mean, that's the whole thing with the trans presidents thing too, right? Like all of the elite looking kind of trans. Like maybe there's something. I don't know. It seems interesting to me, the idea that they could be on the trans side.
If we had Eddie still on this show, he'd be going off right now about Baphomet as far as the trans thing goes. He's like, look, clearly, you know.
Yeah.
All I
Which would
can
be
say,
fun.
the more you learn about this in terms of facial structures and so on, and you look at some pictures, there's some videos, not necessarily, I mean, some even on YouTube actually. It is kind of creepy, and it makes you wonder, you know, why they all look the same. They all have these square jaws and so on. And if you look into sports, I brought this up with Andreas, you have Serena Williams and so on. They got interviewed at 11 years old by Trans World Sports. I'm not kidding you. Again, strange family background. And 10 years later, you know, they're on top of the hill. Yeah. And then 20 years later, people complain about men and women's sports. I mean, good luck, right?
Imagine
Right.
like
There's only a small handful of places where you'd take serious issue. You're like, the men competing in the women's sports, come on, give me a break. The wanting to go into the women's bathrooms. Why do women have their own why do we have separated bathrooms? Because way back when women and men were working in factories together, women were getting abused in the shared bathrooms, and they were like, oh, maybe we should give them their own bathrooms. Like, it was a hard-earned right. So it's like, and then it's like, it's so weird. Like, it just seems like there's these really basic things, but they're like, want to fight it.
Yeah, but the idea of celebrities that are hermaphrodites or something. Maybe they're not just like your MK Ultra mind controlled trans, like your average Americans. Maybe there's something more to it. The Anunnaki hermaphrodites that run the world, right?
Right. And
They
if you
actually
pass
are
the
both
path,
genders.
that's like Blair White's whole point is like she never had a problem. Like if you pass, meaning you're convincing enough or whatever, and people aren't, you know, you go into the stall, you use the stall, you go. It shouldn't have to be a big deal. It's like when you want to go in with a big beard and a dress, it's like, okay, it's gonna make somebody uncomfortable, and you're like, you shouldn't be uncomfortable. That's bigoted. It's like, this, you know, come on.
Yeah, you can't help some people. It's all right. Once Once I realized every sports team is exactly the same, it took away the joy. It robbed the joy of all sportingness. It's like, yeah, now most of the teams are going to lose. They're going to lose or not win the championship. And the team that does win the championship, they'll probably lose next year. So it's like
the last Super Bowl ruined it for me, dude. I'm pretty much done, dude. I've been following football my whole life. My dad was like, his whole mood was dependent upon how the 49ers were doing. My whole childhood, like, he would be pissed until the next time they won. Like, and I grew up in the 80s, so it was awesome for that time. And then the 90s were more and more challenging. But the point is, like, that was so rigged. That was so rigged. I'm not saying like the amount of influence with the coin flip and the way that all went down. I don't know if you watched last Super Bowl, man, but I was just like, give me a freaking break. And it's like, and also that whole thing with the process where you're zooming in. Like, yeah, we used to have like the replay was cool. Like, okay, let's watch that again. Now they're like, did that blade of grass touch the knee? Did he like the anal aspect of it's like, and it's just so constant. Another flag, because it can zoom in and go. It's like they took the fun out of the game when you take it to that level. Like if you're playing with your friends, like it's fun because you're not like doing that micro analysis shit. It's like I can't even, dude. I can't. And it's just the way that game flipped and the specifics about it. I was like, I can see in my face how they rigged this. Like it's overt. Like just why? Like it felt like it had to do more with Taylor Swift and her boyfriend than it did the fucking game.
Now it's well, if you look, okay, statistically, if you want to bring up statistics, like factually, every Super Bowl game in the past 15, 20 years, you can narrow it down if you want to be more specific, but every Super Bowl score has been the average score spread has
Fix your cable.
Yeah. The average point spread has been lower in the past 20 years than it was in the previous 40. And it's not even by like a small margin. It's been like by a pretty scary margin. It's like at this point, obviously they have incentive. The more exciting the game is, the more they can sell advertisers in the future. So it's very obvious that the refs are basically encouraged, either overtly or like covertly, subtly, however you want to put it, to keep the games close. And so they definitely call very, very conspicuous penalties occasionally, or miss very obvious ones. A good example is when the Bengals opened up the second half a few years ago. There was a very obvious face mask, but they just let it go, and they gave them the touchdown, and that kept the game close. And I think, it's very well that it's. I can't even watch the sports anymore. It's because it feels like mind control. That's what it feels
totally.
Like.
Yeah, I mean, I can take it when it comes to politics because at least you're like, oh yeah, well they're trying to reach these ends or whatever. I can't deal with it when it comes to sports, man. I'm like, if you want to, if I can see something's rigged, it's like okay, let's fight that. Well, how can I sitting on my couch or whatever fight them rigging a fucking sports game? Like I got nothing. You know what I mean? Like there's no. What am I gonna do? Petition, write my governor. Like there's no one to write. Like I can't. I'm sorry.
Maybe the local betting mafia. There's only one parallel I see, both between Elon rigging his game charts and this rigging, and I think there's whole channels dedicated to showing how they're rigging these games all the time. All that it makes me think of is revelation of the method. Surprise, the game is rigged.
Totally.
Well, also, I mean, if we're talking about football in particular, since that's what you're talking about, David, of like, oh, I'll never pay attention to the Super Bowl the same way again. But
so
even if you were to look at like the football and the Super Bowl are basically placeholders for just old battles on actual, big plots of land. But really, even in those, even like what this proxy is meant for, the real battle was over the grass. It was over like the agricultural field that you were fighting over, that was being enriched by all the iron and the blood and everything. But if you look at it that way, whoever wins, it's actually the field. It's the amount of money. I think it costs somewhere upwards of like $100,000 a year per one of these grass fields.
Got anthropological.
When you talk about
the Golden Bough again,
they zoom all the way into a blade of grass. Yeah, dummy. That's what the whole freaking game's about. It's about how meticulous they keep this grass, and that is very unique. I don't think there's any other, maybe fake sports that are only in Europe, but like here in America where real sports happen, that's the only sport where grass is such a vital part. You can play baseball in clay, right? You can all the other sports can be done indoors, outdoors, but football, more specifically, I don't think 100% of the time, but it's typically done on natural grass fields, outdoor or in domes, where the emphasis still very much is on the grass they're playing on, and it's not about the individual players that are on the field.
Right. Dude, deep. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was interrupting you to just say it sounds like you've been reading The Golden Bough, because that's kind of the whole premise. You're like, there's a game happening that's a topical game, but then underneath it is the actual, like, the thing that really matters, you know? So it's like, if you were to say, you know, you have people out on a field like that, you know, die in battle, and then it doesn't matter what side they were on, it's all going to imbue the future growth from the nature itself. You know, they would argue, I don't know how true it is, you know, but they would argue that, you know, the decomposing of the bodies in the long run would then be seen in the flowers and the beauty.
Right. It's kind of win-win, because like if your dad dies on the field, well, that sucks. You don't have a dad now and you lost the war, but the next time you eat corn, you get to eat part of your dad. But
right.
if you win, then like you get nourished by the enemy's fallen. Like again, it's a win-win in so many ways, and that's why I think everyone can enjoy sports.
Right. It's also like the end of Pan's Labyrinth, like the very end, like the last thing you see when that flower blossoms, and it's like a narcissus flower, and it's like because it's from like she died there, and now like this is like she's coming through in the yeah, because Pan is everything, right? That was the point. Like people would say, oh, it's Fawn's Labyrinth, you know. Sorry, it's a tangent, but Fawn's Labyrinth. But no, he says who he is. He's like, I'm the wind, I'm the dirt, I'm the, you know, the everything, because Pan is all, you know. It's like why you have like pan pizza and a frying pan and pandemic and, you know, whatever. Look, however you slice the pizza, it's still gonna be pizza. I'm just saying. What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh, blood turns brown when it dies. It must be an excellent fertilizer, you know.
What do you think about this dress? This is for the ball, the inauguration ball. Is she wearing a sort of like, is this like a redacted CIA redacted document, or have I been looking too many of those? You know what I mean?
I was actually looking at Trump with the sword, because we were doing the Mortal Kombat analogies. This would make him Ken Chi from Mortal Kombat 3, I believe.
Pretty good.
You just passed by a really good, what seemed like a really funny one about Elon, but
which one? This one or the one with the colors? This one here?
Oh yeah.
I thought you might like that one.
I like that one. That's pretty good.
Does that mean that anytime you like raise your hand or like hail a taxi, depending on context, but you inadvertently become a Nazi for at least like 30 degrees?
Hey, I thought that, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you do a Z Heil, aren't you doing straight up? Like, I guess shouldn't do it here, but isn't it just a straight up thing, like the hand?
You're allowed to do it in America legally.
Out of all of us, you're the one.
And as a Jew, I think we'd be amused. But like the difference is that we talked about this earlier. Bellamy created the American salute, pretending it was a Roman salute, and that one is what the Americans used to do in schools, right? And they started on the heart, and then they extended out from the heart, which is different from the Italian and German salute, which is like from down up, like straight towards your eye kind of thing. So one's coming from your mind, others from your heart. Well, ours comes from the heart.
Tripping out over like, you know, or you know, like I'm like, dude, it's like there's basic like, oh, he's holding his hands this way. It's like, dude, this is how, like, these are really like just compulsive, like things that people just do anyway. So it gets really, is it a dog whistle or whatever? It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I guess it's a little bit more specific, you know, the full movement of that, you know, but I don't know. It just seems like things that people could just do and we're freaking out about, you know, like Illuminati confirmed or Nazi confirmed, you know. Like, I mean, wanting to just look at the particulars about what it is that they're doing rather than the gestures or the symbols, you know.
But you know, like I think what I was reason I brought it up because Kurt had asked about it earlier, and Kurt was saying, you know, that this was such a clear Nazi looking gesture. I was like, well, this is what Americans used to do first, right? Before there was a Nazi Germany, since the 1880s, the United States had the Bellamy salute in all the classrooms, And I'm saying it mainly because I think they're bringing it back. I think him doing that might be a nod that America might be headed towards that Starship future really quick because he wants that, not because he wants it to be a Nazi.
I would like to see the future if we're talking about making America, great again or whatever the hell. Something to change is just us being less fixated on symbolism and more fixated on substance. And like that whole, it's a freaking meme where you're like, okay, you got two planes dropping bombs, but one of them has a rainbow flag on it. I'd like to see us not caring about the superficial as much as the thing in itself, rather than, it just feels like such a superficial relationship to things that we're so hyper focused on the symbolism more than the thing in itself.
I mean, yeah, but like if American kids all start to do this everywhere and schools,
unprompted.
That's a pivot. No, it's a pivot though, right? Like
we're talking allegiance is weird in the first place. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty American.
I knew a woman who came here from Germany, and she put her kids into a public school, and the kid came home and said that they had to pledge allegiance to the flag, and she lost it. She was like, "That's not possible." She's like, "I came to America because it's illegal in Germany to do that." Now
that's the thing. Germans, it's illegal to do anything. They don't know what's going on. I just watched an episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in Germany, and it was like, it's such a time travel. It's like the same stage from 25 years ago in America, but like they're doing it like nothing's changed except they have some German guy doing the show, which everybody loves. Raph might remember the name of the dude who does the hosting. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I totally no. He's not Janich. 1 second. He's super popular, but the thing is, he also on the side owns like a winery, as if he wouldn't have enough money for moderating this for 20 years, and is selling his wine. But actually, it's not even from his own winery, but just like a brand. That's the one trivia I know about him. What's his name again? It's so funny that he's so popular and I don't know his name.
It doesn't really matter. Some Gonza Folgen. I don't know.
No, that's Günther Jauch. Yes, Günther Jauch. Of course, nobody in America knows him, but like anyone in German-speaking region would know him because this show has been going nonstop for like ever since it started in the US, I guess.
Really?
And it's funny because you said in America it doesn't exist anymore at all.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anyone watches TV at all. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire 20?
The problem is that $1 million is just not a lot of money in the States anymore. I think that's one of the biggest blows that show
and the
took.
one thing I really noticed watching this sometimes over the years, or just looking at the screen sometimes when it's playing somewhere, is they really, really downgraded the levels in terms of making an exponential curve. Because before it was like this, that on the first levels, you actually would earn decent money. And then they removed it that the second to last level is like 300,000 and then the million. So they really made sure that unless you get to the very top, you're not getting anything really.
Jesus Christ, is that real? Andreas popped out.
I guess that's your.
It's going to be AI.
I mean, it could be, but
is that what's happening?
Oh my God, I think this is real. They're going to do it. I don't know.
Is this show on television with him? Is that now, or is that something that?
I mean, it looks like they are really doing this for real. I don't know.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's gonna have celebrities and things like that, and they're gonna be doing it for charities. Okay,
for
crazy. Point is, some German girl goes on the show. She's got like some hippie braid and some silly outfit from Kresge. She looks like one of those UCSC girls, one of these like hippie girls from the Ewok village in Santa Cruz. Not from there. Her parents paid money for her to go there.
Right. It's not all the Wooks. It's just the ones that sneak into the festival for free. Yeah.
Yeah, like the kind of girl whose parents could have paid for her to live in Williamsburg or Phoenix or whatever she wanted. So like they have this girl on the show and she's trying to answer the questions, and it gets to a question. It's like, do you know which country doesn't have a national Independence Day, right? And I was thinking, like, man, the question's not that hard.
UK, France, US, and Germany.
Yeah.
So which one? We can pose the question to you guys.
Which does not have a national Independence Day? Well, it's obviously not US, because we definitely have it.
Well, a national day, I guess it was basically just a national.
Like Independence Day, like literally Independence Day.
It's not independence, just a national day for the country. You know, the national day of
The Day of the Nation.
Yeah, Nation Day.
Oh, the Purge Day.
So
Purge Day.
France. So what's France?
We had France, UK, US, and Germany.
If I had to guess, I'd say UK because they probably don't deserve one.
If I had to guess, I'd say Germany. But yeah.
Right.
Well, because they're not allowed to have one.
That's what you'd think. Totally. That Germany's not allowed to have one, which makes the most sense. However, that's what this girl was thinking too. She's like thinking Germany doesn't have one, obviously, because we're humble people that have been beaten down and we're not allowed to have one. And then she decides America probably doesn't have a national holiday. So for me, this is crazy. This is crazy that she doesn't know that America has an Independence Day. It's crazy. A German girl, of all people, like it's like Americans aren't supposed to know where places are on maps, but a German girl that she doesn't know that Germany has a national day, which is I guess forgivable because they do beat them to not know anything about their own country. But they do supposedly have September 3rd, a Restoration Day, from where they swallowed the East Germany into West Germany. They call that Restoration Day, and that's like the new holiday for Germany. So Germany does have one.
German Unity Day.
Yeah,
and
German Unity.
The class is called National Day, apparently, according to Wiki. What we're looking for, National Day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so like the National Day,
though, because this is like being called up in front of Big Brother, and they're like, "What is 2 + 2?" And she's like, she knows that she can't say 4. Like she knows that she's not. Right. Even if that is the right answer, you're not allowed to say it.
But you know that Napoleon had a revolution, so France obviously had a day. So you've got July 14th for Bastille Day, so July 4th. And July 4th is America, so you know America has Independence Day. So it's England. England, the United Kingdom, they don't have a day. They celebrate
our independence from England, so why would they have, we're independent.
They just have royal. They just celebrate the birthday of the royal nation.
Why would they have an Independence Day? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Dude, isn't it weird that movie Independence Day is just literally about like fighting aliens, like they're illegal, like
it was their independence.
And then also exactly. And then it's like that we figure it out, like America figures it out with Will Smith or whatever and Randy Quaid, and then they're just like send it to the other nations rather than
Jeff Goldblum. Like, it's all about the Jews saving America from illegal aliens, basically. Because
is that what's happening? Yeah.
Because Jeff Goldblum has the rabbi father, the whole time he's praying.
But who built the alien ships?
Oh, in the first place, the motherships.
Yeah, who built the ships?
Childhood's End. It was demons, man.
I mean, all the aliens look the same in the spaceship, didn't they?
Did you guys ever read Childhood's End from Arthur C. Clarke? Do you know that book?
No.
So like Childhood's End, the way that it starts out is literally like these giant. It's just like Independence Day, where these motherships just like land all over the world. It's the exact same thing. And then we're just like looking at them, like, what are they going to do? What are they? And then, but the thing with this book is, it turns out that what we have called demons are actually aliens, or whatever you want to call them. They like ancient people saw them, and then they like they bring people back to their planet. It's really crazy. This book was the inspiration for Storm Thurgeson for the cover of Houses of the Holy from Led Zeppelin. By the way, like that's a symbolic representation of this book. It's pretty crazy. And also Pink Floyd has a song called Childhood's End on Obscured by Clouds that's about this book. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, there's that idea of like independence and like literally like an alien invasion. Like it's like Project Bluebeam meets like Independence Day. I don't know.
Is that a reptilian eye? Was that
dude? What was the deal? Do you guys follow the weird stuff? What happened with that egg ship? What was happening? There's like a whole thing going around of like some like discovery of some ship that's like an egg, and they were like recovering it. It's all over Twitter. Do you know about this?
I saw Mork and Mindy recently.
Right.
I was rewatching that. I showed that to Raphael, and the egg is the vehicle that he arrives in Mork and Mindy. That's a major part of the show.
This is Thelemic, and I don't know actually the full extent if it's just like a Kenneth Anger thing, or not Kenneth Anger, Kenneth Grant thing, the successor of the OTO.
I never really think about the rooster, but the rooster is the Abraxas, right? Abraxas is the serpent rooster, which is the brutal. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Very applicable, actually. Oh, there it is. It's right down there. Oh, you had it.
Oh, I did? I'll come back to it. Just
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, Braxis, yeah. But yeah, see that?
this guy here.
It's just like UFO that like it looks like it's just PSYOP city, but I'm just like, it's weird because it just, every description of the whole thing, how they're treating it, it just screams of like Kenneth Grant's trip out on like ayahuasca and like how it was like related with this egg or whatever. I don't know if Crowley himself ever said it, but like the extraterrestrial ayahuasca demon is alien thing, like it just feels like the stages are being set for Project Bluebeam stuff. I don't know, you know, like Project Bluebeam meets ayahuasca or something. I don't know. I'm
think there's
surprised
probably
guys didn't get hit with this weird thing. You don't know what I'm talking about, huh? Okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't know enough
no.
about it.
We did like a brief thing talking about the egg ship at one point, like a week ago or whenever, a few days ago. I don't know exactly
on
what
one of
the
your
answer
other
is. Though.
podcasts. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't really know still exactly what I'm supposed to say about the thing, about what exactly the thing was.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the UFO egg UAP. I was going to look and see if there's like more information that's come up since then. I was going to ask Alien Scientist, but Alien Scientist's Twitter was taken down like a week before everything happened. So I hit him up recently. Hopefully he'll get back to me if I called him or texted him rather. But yeah, there's the thing we did with David Ewing Jr. the other night talking about UFOs being kind of like mud meteorites, this idea that there's a whole bunch of different Promethean homunculus being created, maybe.
Well, David also related it to, and now talking to you, David, but David Ewing related it to also something that supposedly some rabbis talk about in terms of not air, but the water from rain mixing with clay and people arising. And of course, the question is now, is that just wholesale fabrication? What about the golem? What about Emmet? Or is it just that they wanted to ascribe this to certain people to make them seem less than, you know, because they were orphans from a previous civilization, had to live outside the city walls in the mud, and then you just use that to, you know, denigrate them? But also the open question I still want to answer, ideally, is what about the whole idea of spontaneous generation as a concept in itself? Because we often make the strong distinction between organic and inorganic. And at least when you could still find stuff on search engines, from the research I made into pleomorphism and caverns, biological transmutation, there seem to be some documented instances, at least in writing, where you have like crystalline fluids or something and some kind of small flies emerging from it and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's really a hard boundary, let's say, inorganic, organic, or if something can happen there.
Oh, interesting. Kubrick talked about that. I saw in the archives for in one of his boxes on AI at Elephant and Castle when I was going through them, where he's responding to somebody who was giving pitch ideas for AI and for the film AI, and he makes the point. Kubrick in his handwriting, he makes the point that what they're speaking to with the AI is that it is similar, but it is not the same thing. It's completely different than the homunculus. So he was saying that, like, he refers to the, you just said Emet, which is Hebrew for truth, that they when you're beginning to make the golem, you put Emet there on his forehead, and then when you're done with it, you remove the aleph, and then it becomes just Met, which is Hebrew for death, which is why we have Met life insurance, because it's death life insurance in Hebrew. But anyway, he was making this distinction. He's like, this isn't actually the same thing, because he was saying that the golem is organic still. And so that was like, and Spielberg kind of did a little bit of what he was showing, but by having the Orga and the Mecha, right? So he's like, they don't actually meet, like they're like two independent expressions. And so, but that's the conundrum. It's like they twist, though. They relate to each other, and they mirror. One is mirroring the other, but one is reliant. The Mecha is reliant upon the Orga. The Orga is not reliant upon the Mecha. So one can't exist without the other, but the other one can. And that's the point of emanation, where you're like, which is primary, becomes all more important. So Kubrick was emphasizing that point in his relationship to AI, but I think Steven Spielberg kind of missed it, because Steven Spielberg wanted to make a family film, and he couldn't be scary enough. You know?
Do you not have the opinion that Steven Spielberg intentionally sort of changed AI to be
Yes.
something that was like the antithesis of what Kubrick originally wanted to be, as like a thumb in his eye?
Absolutely. I think that Spielberg pissed all over Kubrick's grave, and I think he tried to do it again with this miniseries of Napoleon, and that Ridley Scott caught wind of what he was trying to do again with Kubrick stuff, and just went ahead and made Kubrick's film basically to be as a giant FU to Spielberg, because Spielberg I don't think he ever really liked Kubrick. I think he judged him and he looked down on him and he thought that he was crazy, and then he just wanted to use his name to make his own stuff, you know. Yeah I would like to like Spielberg, but I can't anymore, you know. I like E.T. and Jurassic Park. They're entertainment.
Oh, Heather O'Rourke was one time. It never happened again after that. I mean, get over it.
It's so weird. The stuff with Heather is so weird. I can't even. That's a rabbit hole. I went. Looked into that one pretty deeply.
It's such a deep rabbit hole. It turns into a fistula.
It's insane. It's insane. Every part of that just goes on and on, just into total insanity. So I can't even say about Spielberg's particulars around that. Like, I don't know, satanic ritual, whatever the hell you want to say. I don't know. But why the shit is there a poster for a Super Bowl that hasn't happened yet, that won't happen for another 6-7 years, that's on the children's wall, that she has her intestine twist when the game is happening in her city of Detroit. So like, or not Detroit, excuse me, I meant to say San Diego. So it's the game that's on the poster on their wall that hasn't happened yet. She gets twisted intestine during the game and dies on the way to the hospital. It's too much. Like, how does that happen? And they show you the poster when the canary dies, and they're like, "Oh, why'd you have to die on a school day?" and all that. You know, when the mom flushes the canary down the toilet. It's just, I'm sorry, like it's insane.
One time, it happened one time, David.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of Super Bowl deaths, like Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I was trying to think of who's the other one.
Philip Seymour Hoffman died during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think also wasn't Jim. Who's not Fallon, right? Chris Fallon? Didn't Chris Fallon die on Super Bowl? Or is that the wrong name? Who's the guy who's the fat guy? Chris Farley.
Yeah, they're watching a football game when they find the canary. So like, and that's why she says, "Why couldn't you have died on a school day?" So you know it's Super Bowl. It's Sunday. Was it the Super Bowl in Poltergeist, or was it just a game? I don't really tell you. Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like Super Bowl is pretty much also January 15th. When's this year's February? When's 2025 Super Bowl? Scheduled for February 9th. Okay. And it's called Licks. Is that right? Is that what we're looking at? Licks? L-I-X? Whoa. Licks. Like you're gonna get your licks. You know? I don't know. Because like Super Bowl tends to be we've had like all kinds of conspiracies where a bunch of kids are human trafficked at Super Bowl, that Trump's QAnon, right? Like freed a bunch of kids, saved the most kids ever from a Super Bowl. Do you remember this Super Bowl human?
That would be a pretty awesome follow-up to Sound of Freedom. I'm not gonna lie. If Tim Ballard, the next movie, it takes place at a Super Bowl.
How did I just want to say, like, with Sound of Freedom, like, how did they even treat that? Like, it was a right-wing film, like the way that everyone was responding to it. It's like, dude, this is a film, a true story about human trafficking. Why is it polarized like that? I don't understand. Don't we all care about these issues?
Because of Jimmy C, who played Jesus and was also pretty much like a QAnon frontman. He was like the most receptive and maybe even aligned with the Q movement, even when he was going on the road.
Excuse my ignorance. Is this an actor in the movie?
Jim Caviezel. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Okay.
Caviezel.
Okay. So there's something to that. It's not just that the subject matter. That was what the reaction was.
Well, he went. This is even before Sound of Freedom came out, but he was on the road and was getting interviewed, and he actually retold some of the Dernoderm story, the adrenaline derivative stories on these like live interviews. It got broadcast on main channels, and he was saying, yeah, they extract this from children, and like he said all of the things. So he kind of became this QAnon figurehead.
You've become an expert at saying the thing without saying the thing. So I immediately know what it is.
Yeah,
without saying it. Yeah, you're good at that.
Well, he did play Jesus in the Passion of the Christ, so I feel like he had an in with that.
Which is having a sequel come up pretty soon. You know about that? Mel Gibson's producing the sequel to the Passion of the Christ, where Jesus is in hell. And
Resurrection of Christ, 2026 should be coming out. Plot kept under wraps.
Yeah, that's going to be a biggie. That's.
And this is going to happen while Mel Gibson is now like the official liaison to Hollywood. On top of that, right?
Right. Yeah,
that's true.
That's wild.
So, I mean,
that doesn't even sound like a real thing, but it apparently he's on some sort of.
So did he lose his house? And was his house in Palisades?
His house was destroyed.
So James Woods was saying, I lost my house, but he didn't really. He evacuated his house, but it's not gone. But that's my understanding. But Mel Gibson did in fact lose his house. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what he said. I believe so. Wait, hold on. I mean, he was saying he did. Yeah, it was destroyed. Yeah.
Bummer.
I mean,
should have painted that roof blue.
$14.5 million Malibu mansion destroyed by Palisades fire. I don't know if he has fire. The question is always about the fire insurance, like whether or not, because like most people couldn't have fire insurance in California anymore unless they got really special fire insurance, which was just outrageous. So it didn't make sense.
2 months before a whole district in LA lost their fire insurance, from my understanding.
Yeah, but here he is walking around.
It's all over California. It's going to be happening elsewhere too, if it's not already. But yeah.
Yeah, so like, what's going to happen with that? Do you think Trump is going to like, take some? If it was a burning down building, then the landlord would take some responsibility, right? If this was the ghost ship, you think that someone would be in charge of the responsibility more than just to say, oh, it's such a wildfire.
Here's my concern: is that when Gavin Newsom says we have $50 million from taxpayer money that we're using to quote unquote Trump-proof California, I'm afraid of what Trump-proof is in relationship to. If it really has anything to do with Trump per se, or if it's really just about we want to continue our mismanagement and our corrupt stuff that we're so attached to doing. So would that be an example of stuff to do with insurance companies, not just with fire insurance and stuff, but also liability, and not just housing, but also medical stuff? Because the insurance companies were one of the worst parts of COVID response and all the fraud and all the crap that went on. You know what I mean? Like, the people blame hospitals for things that were largely them having to just respond to insurance companies. Like, insurance companies are the fucking worst. You remember Bulworth? I know it's fictional, but you remember like Warren Beatty's Bulworth? You ever seen that? Where it's like the people who took out Bulworth at the end was the insurance company guy. He's the guy you saw on the roof, and then he's like, everyone's pointing up there,
Great movie, great, even greater soundtrack.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes. That's kind of a Pink Floyd The Wall kind of thing going on too, with how he ends up.
This was like the last big hit Maya had. Praz Maya and ODB was that Bulworth, and it had him like rapping and like doing the whole Warren Beatty was in the music video. Yeah, it was a different time that like that would be like a restoration. I almost see Trump as the closest we've had to like a Bulworth.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I reference Bulworth a lot. Most people don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah. No, it's kind of all there, isn't it? And then also,
you gotta remind, what's the plot that a black guy died and came back of Warren Beatty, or is that another movie that I'm thinking of?
No, that's another movie you're thinking of, I think. But yeah. What are you saying?
That's Heaven Can Wait.
That's Heaven Can Wait. Yeah, but no, this is you got to be a spirit.
Right,
can't be no ghost. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know how you remembered that so quickly.
Wait, that's related though. That's weird, because at the end of Bulworth, there's a homeless guy who comes out and who said earlier, he's like, you got to be a spirit. You can't be no ghost. That's totally related to Heaven Can Wait. I never made that connection. Thank you.
So instead of a senator, it's like about Gavin Newsom, the governor.
Yeah, I think it's inspired by Pink Floyd's The Wall. I really do. I think that's why the cover looks like that. Remember the screaming cover of Pink Floyd's The Wall? That's totally like, and also that it's the television he's watching on mute, and he's just like flipping the channels, watching, just staring at it, tripping out, Yeah. Anyway. That's what it says in
God.
there. It's being up for 3 days or whatever. Anyway.
Well, I don't know. I was just thinking about the Super Bowl. Feels like that could be something crazy coming up then. You guys want to have any, like, I guess we were kind of like into a 3-hour thing. I don't know. I tried to do the 3-hour thing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Andreas.
Yeah. American Time Machine's gonna jet out. Oh, he just disappeared. Okay.
Oh,
Cool. He'll be all right. Well, we could do, if there's any closing thoughts you want to do.
I've got a closing thought. I want to plant a seed here because we all realize like the political pendulum is clearly swinging in the opposite direction. Let's not get rid of Drag Queen Story Hour entirely. I want to propose that we keep that program going. Trump endorses it, but they show up to schools and drag queens read the Turner Diaries. I think that would be the right way to swing the pendulum. I just want to plant that seed.
What's the Turner Diaries about?
The Ted Turner Diaries.
Oh,
or the regular Turner Diaries, yeah. The Turner Diaries was what radicalized, allegedly, Timothy McVeigh, along with a long host of other characters, but it's essentially talking about the ultimate, like the Turner Diaries is what would happen if Kamala Harris won. That black police officers would show up to the house of white people and arrest them just for being white, essentially. It takes it to like a fever pitch extreme of like political retribution and violence.
Brutal.
You think that would be healthy for the country to have the drag queens reading this to the children?
I think that it would be this like unification of extremes.
Yeah.
It would be
All right.
it would make both sides of it seem so ridiculously like
Cancel
irrational
out.
that
Right.
like not just cancel out, but it would like break your brain in a good way.
And
right?
expand freedom, because that's what I want to see too.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
word.
it's like how a refrigerator works.
Because I'm more concerned, like, woke ideology was becoming so restrictive that we needed to make it more inclusive. It used to be an idea of inclusion, and the same thing is going to happen to the Christian right. So if we were to force it to be something like this in between, but this is interesting, just the idea the United States leads for an overthrow of the federal government, a nuclear war, and ultimately a race war, which leads to a systematic extermination of non-whites and Jews. I mean,
Helter Skelter, basically.
Yeah, I was thinking this is like Charles Manson. Did Charles Manson read this book? Or is this too late for him? 78. No, he would have maybe had access. I don't know.
Later, but not.
Not in jail,
This gets
yeah.
cited way more often with anything that comes up around like Oklahoma City and McVeigh, but pretty much like a long line of lineage. Like if you're big into Waco and David Koresh and even like Ruby Ridge, Turner Diaries is sort of like the one book that keeps popping up. This is like the racist version of the J.D. Salinger book that's escaping my mind.
Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye. Yeah, this is
You're the
like
last
the
and best
Catcher in the Rye.
This is, oh my God. All right. Okay. What about you, David? What are you thinking about?
What am I thinking about? I don't know. There's a lot of there's I know that I'm going to walk away from this conversation and feel like there's like some key big things going on that we forgot to bring up, or I wasn't.
Yeah.
Before I got on the call, I didn't even know. But there's a lot happening right now. It's a lot to keep track of everything. But yeah. Yeah. No, do I have any sync films? New ones? Check out the I don't know if it's in my highlights, but like I was saying, Hadar has her new album out. I did a pairing with the Christmas Carol from the 1930s and Christmas Carol from the 1950s and Krampus all at the same time, because her theme is if you know Christmas Carol, it's all a dream, right? So he like wakes up in his bed and is transformed, so I did that. But yeah, all kinds of my controversial tweeting, but yeah. Oh yeah, I really like that show with the girl with Tourette's. It's really, really fun. I don't normally watch reality shows ever, but the TLC show with this girl, she's cracking me up. I had a good friend with Tourette's. I think I say that here in the tweet, but yeah, it's like I'm glad that there's a show about somebody with Tourette's. There was like a Tourette's epidemic that happened recently because you can't get Tourette's like later in life. I don't think. I think if that is a thing, it's got to be extremely rare. But there was all these kids that were like faking Tourette's because everyone wants to have the new disorder, right? Because it like totally does something for you socially. So it was like
There's like a disorder though. It would be a fun one to pick.
There's a South Park where Cartman does that, but then he ends up actually invoking Tourette's within himself because he's just he's just saying exactly what he wants to say, like just all the time, and then it's like things start to come out, like he's like, me and my cousin touch wieners. He's like, I can't stop it, and then it totally goes there. It's a great episode, but it's just so you watch the show and you're like, oh great, we're gonna have people wanting to be like, I have Tourette's, but it's one of those things. It's like you can't. There are some exclusive clubs, and having real tics, especially the ones that involve obscenities, is like not common. So good luck with all the kids that might want to imitate this lady. But I think it's a fascinating topic. So yeah,
brutal.
My friend who had Tourette's when I was growing up, he went to Vegas years later. He lived in Vegas, I think, for 6 years and did pretty well playing poker because his tics weren't like extreme and he didn't have obscenity tics. So like people are trying to read him, like what does he do? He's just like he's got these subtle tics, so he's just doing great at poker. Apparently that's some good use of the
crazy. Wow.
That's an awesome show, actually. Just Tourette's Poker Championship. That's a
great idea. I would watch nothing but that. I would binge that.
Everybody has Tourette's at the table.
All of everybody. Tourette's League. Well, I was gonna ask Raph, but really quickly, I'm gonna ask you all, and then ask Raph one more thing. Who comment on United States' intent to withdraw from the World Health Organization? Who's like, we play a crucial role in protecting health and security. United States was a founding member of WHO in 1948. With the participation of the United States for the past 7 years implementing reforms, history transformed. We hope the United States will reconsider and look forward. What do you think about this? The World Health Organization is responding.
Oh, you ask who you asking?
Who's on first?
Can I just go the fuck off on it?
Go
just really quickly. Yeah. So who? First of all, people know this probably, but they're the ones who had all these projections in 2020 for if we didn't do these protocols that we now know from a House subcommittee report were just the wrong move across the board, pretty much. So like, I don't know if you want to look at the House subcommittee report that came out on COVID response, it's pretty damning for like all of this stuff that the WHO recommended, not just recommended, but by force said like, you do this or else. And it was the WHO who told Sweden that if they didn't do what they actually did, that they would have a 10 to 15 times as many deaths as they ended up having. Because of the WHO's recommendations, Sweden built 4 makeshift hospitals for the WHO's projected overflow. Not a single bed in any of those hospitals was ever used. Sweden fared better than almost anywhere in Europe, and by doing what they would normally do for the most part. And so, you know what, the WHO with their like what it is that they did, the aspects of the thing that were in fact a scamdemic largely came from the WHO. So us being removed from the WHO, I think, is a very positive thing. It's too much. And if they try to pull that shit again, like it's going to be worse than it would be if we just like endured whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like if there is a pandemic, the WHO isn't helping. Is my point.
Anybody else?
I'm going to be pro WHO. Just
because
to be that.
The band or Pete Townsend.
Yeah. That movie Tommy. Yeah. I mean, Raph and I earlier, we were walking around Vienna and there was this phone booth. And these phone booths, they have, not very often anymore in the world. So it's funny to see a brand new, nice, fancy phone booth put up. But what I thought was interesting is in the phone booth is this defibrillator.
Really? They literally have ads for that. I think I even saw it on TV where they're like, oh, your defibrillator, it's saving lives. So amazing. Ever wonder why so many people turn out with heart issues? I mean, there would be enough civilization type diseases already, but recent events might have accelerated this due to stressors of various kinds.
Sure.
Dude, look how young these people are in the ads. They're like, they're pretty worried about people needing heart defibrillators now. It's pretty
Weird.
crazy. I mean, it's not just an ad. It's like for real. Just like they have them all over the place in case you need to defibrillate. How many people are defibrillating?
They actually had these all over the back lot of Disney.
That makes sense.
Real? You
Yeah,
saw
I
these?
remember seeing these all the time, but they also had another little warning that was like, you will be fined, like, it was astronomical, like $10,000 if you like break this glass and you don't actually need it.
Oh.
I mean, so it's not recreational? That's too bad. But
We're not there yet. We haven't evolved as a species yet to where defibrillation is now a recreational thing. Or you're just preemptive, just to make sure that nothing bad happens to you.
It's a good party game. You know.
It's the
Raph,
next
what
latest
about-
other. Yeah.
what about you, Raph? You have some thoughts? What have you been thinking?
Yeah, I didn't really, but thanks for putting that up. So I have a segue. You can pull up the last image which I sent in the private chat. And I
Okay.
guess that's a good closing point segue. It's a definition of the World
Oh,
Health
no,
Organization.
That's not yours. My bad.
How we can all be pro-WHO by simply reading the 1948 definition, which stated, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. With that definition, I can certainly agree. Whatever happened the past 70, 80 years is another topic. Thank you guys, and thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah.
Agreed.